नहीं, it is not casting unless until तुमने broadcast करना शुरू कर दिया. But where is hello? Hello?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There's a delay of 5 to 10 minutes. We are yet to receive some of our speakers and guests. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Stop. I think each is clean. Screenshots. Notice. Got it? Yes. No, 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 that's not it. That's not it. I Time is important. Time is important.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, Palvika Jain, on behalf of Evolution, the Society, and Higher Education Academy for Development, welcome the distinguished speakers and all the delegates. Today's conference is first conference being organized by HEAD in NCR. I'm hopeful that with your presence and participation, it will be fruitful and successful. This conference is also being live telecasted on YouTube. May I now request Dr. Atul Jain, Director Academy, to introduce the theme and the upcoming Higher Education Academy for Development. Dr. Group Captain Atul Jain is alumni of prestigious St. Stephen's College, Delhi. Thereafter, he joined Indian Air Force, where he developed his core capability in management and administration while handling various assignments at different corners of India. He specialized in the field of human resource development, finance, and law, and has been recognized in the IAF as an organizational capacity and capability builder who established systems both in processes and procedures based on the best management practices. After 28 years of dedicated service in administration and HR cadre, he took premature release from the services to pursue his interest in academics. Post IAF, Dr. Jain was head HR of Modi Industries for 2 years to understand the gap between academics and industry practices before shifting back to academics. During his stint in industry, which includes Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, he has done numerous projects and consultancy. Dr. Jain is an accredited management teacher of the All India Management Association, IMA, with NET, and is credited with many papers presented in national and international research conferences. In the last 1 year, 4 of his papers have been published in reputed referred ISBN books and the journals. He is also the author of numerous papers and articles on higher education management in many magazines. As an academician and as a teacher, Dr. Jain has taught subjects like HR, finance, economics, law, communication, and OB, along with managing numerous exams, seminars, or the conferences. He was on the selection committee of Amity University and V School for MBA and Law Admissions. Dr. Jain is an active life member of IMA, member of the Consultancy Development Center as an expert in organization development and HR, member of the American Management Association, National HRD Network, Delhi and Noida Management Associations, and an active member of Family of Disabled, a reputed NGO. Dr. Jain is part of the core group on HRD, a think tank under United Nations Development Programme, a member of Center for Public Policy, Rai Foundation, Delhi, co-member of Center for Professional Performance, Mahamaya Technical University, Noida, and ex-president, Center for Education Growth and Research, Delhi. Currently, he is the founder president of a society, Evolution, involved in providing consultancy to small and medium enterprises for their growth through HR intervention. He is also deeply involved in developing HEAD as an institution for enhancing knowledge, skills, and performance for faculty in colleges and universities. May I invite Dr. Atul Jain? Sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before anything else, may I request our honorable key speakers to kindly come on the dais. May I request Dr. Manisha Prem to kindly come on the dais and take the seat. Dr. Niti Sinha, Dr. Yamini Agarwal, kindly come on the dais, please. Madam, please come. Dr. Austin. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this is totally woman-powered conference, and we are definitely honored to have the best of the deans and directors, HODs from the NCR region here with us to deliberate and discuss what is the role of higher education in developing India tomorrow. Very shortly, we will be listening. Dr. Poonam may not be able to join. I have just received a message because of sudden emergency. She may not be able to join. We are still hoping that she turns up, but chances are difficult. But we will continue on time with our presentation. I will briefly talk about and give you a small overall perspective of higher education before I tell you what is all about Higher Education Academy for Development. Let me first tell you what is the world scenario. The United States in 1960 itself attained 40% of age cohort who were attending post-secondary education, that is a higher education. Western Europe and Japan, they also experienced the rapid growth in their higher education framework in 80s, which was followed by developed countries like East Asia and Latin American countries. If we see what percentage of GER they attained, and in year 60s or 80s, can you switch on sunlight, please, here? Give me these lights. I think that is still better. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So basically what I was saying is, if you see the attainment of higher education GER either in the America or European countries or Japan, it is way back 60s and 80s. And today we are at just about 18 to 19%. So this is the world scenario and this is the comparison. And it is estimated by the OECD countries based on 2011 pattern that on an average across OECD countries, 39% of young people will be graduate and 17% will have the master's degree. This graduation rate is as high as 50% in Australia, Denmark, Iceland, New Zealand, and many other countries. So most of the Western countries, whom we call developed countries, advanced countries, they have attained very high level of GER, very high level of participation in the higher education. Please understand, we see that one of the reasons for development is higher education. And what is here in the Asia? You can see at the bottom of this is Bhutan and Pakistan, and at the top end where the GR has reached roughly about 68%, and the Korea, Japan is roughly about 42%, and China itself is at 40%. Where does India stands? Just about 18% last year. In the middle, and it is GER, not net attainment ratio. It's just the number of students who have taken admission. It is not the number of students who have passed out. It does not also answer what is the quality and capacity and capability of these students passing out from the higher education academics. That needs a deliberation and discussion. There are several advantages of doing higher education. We have been talking about advantages of providing primary education, middle education, secondary education. Definitely the grassroots education is important. But what are the advantages of higher education per se? If we see separately, there are advantages to individual and to the country for getting the higher education. If you see that relative earnings of an individual with higher education is more than the person who has not done the higher education. To show you an example, a 25 to 35 years old who has a tertiary education earns 40% more on an average than an adult of the same age who has not done, who has just done the secondary education. And this gap increases with the age group of 55 to 65. This is 73% more earning to an individual as compared to an individual who has done the secondary or senior secondary. There's a huge advantage to an individual. The question is there any advantage to country or the society? The answer is yes, and phenomenal. What is that advantage? Investment in education generate public returns. Public returns in the terms of income tax, increased social insurance payment, and fewer social transfers. How much is this? To quantify, I'm just giving an example. In the OECD countries, the tertiary education generates a public net return or a benefit which is twice as much as overall public expenditure. Twice as much as the public expenditure on post-secondary, secondary education for both men and women. That's a huge advantage economically to the society, to the country, and to the individual. And that is why we should be focusing higher education, which has a pull effect instead of always pushing at the primary, secondary education. Now, what is the future of Indian higher education? There is a turbulent period. There are a lot of pressures. System is going under tremendous pressure for the expansion. But where we are, it is estimated by 2020, India will have the youngest population. We are talking about the population dividend, average age of 29 years, and more than 50% of Indian population will be under age of 25. 50% of population under 25 means either they will be the college students carrying out their masters or research work, or they will be working in the skill sector. Skill sector means secondary, senior secondary, and acquiring some skill under National Skill Development Framework. What will be the advantage? I have already told. If we can take them to higher education. And so India will have the largest tertiary education population and will be the second largest graduation pipeline following China and USA. We will be overshooting. But the underlying silent issue is, even if we have the largest population of graduates, postgraduates, what is the quality of those graduates and postgraduates? That is the issue of higher education. What is the capacity? What will be the capacity? Whether these graduates, postgraduates, scientists, engineers, MBAs, they will be able to steer the country to economical growth or not, that question still remains unanswered. And it is predicted that by 2020, the world 25 to 35 age group, the most productive age group, will be university graduates, and 40% of them will come from India and China. Now, what are the challenges? The challenges are we are at a GR of about 18%, which is well below 27% of the world average. 26% is China itself right now, 36 in Brazil. So there is a enormous demand for higher education. Government aims to take it to 30% by 2020. How the government wants to do it, whether government will be able to do it or not, what are the constraints, I think we will be able to hear something from the panel. But what it actually means is providing 40 million university places in next 6 years. This would mean 800 universities and 40,000 colleges in next 3 years. Who will provide this infrastructure? How this infrastructure will come up in next 6 years? Even if it comes up, students will be there, population is there. What about faculty? That is a good question. What about faculty? Well-trained faculty. We have a very low PhD enrollment. PhD is the starting point for research and development. Research and development, innovation is the starting point for any industry and any industrial, or for that matter, even agriculture growth. With such a dismal 1% of PhD enrollment, I'm afraid we may not be the advanced countries after even 20-25 years. Now, what is the solution which we have found? We means either you, me, or the society or the government. We have seen private-public partnership. We have transferred our responsibility. The government has transferred their responsibility of providing education to the private sector, especially in the higher education. Higher education is now totally overtaken by the private sector. You can see that 59% of all higher education is provided by private institutions, just about 1.6 by the central and 38.6 by the state government. These are creating some issues related to the students' performance, students' capability, teachers' capability, and teachers' performance. We will discuss it more. Some of the challenges, according to me, are these which are on the slide. The greatest challenge facing the higher education in India is the chronic shortage of faculty. As I said, we require 800 universities, about 40,000 colleges. Already we have a shortage of 30 to 40% of university college teachers. With such a massive expansion expected in another 6 years, what will be the shortage? Whether graduate will teach graduate, or probably a higher secondary student will teach graduate only. Guesswork can be made. Most of the faculty currently I'm talking about have no training in teachers training. They have no training. Doing just PhD and NET, probably MPhil, they start teaching. There is lack of teaching skills in the faculty, and there's a very limited understanding of learning process. We are in the teaching mode. All our universities, by and large, I'm saying, we are in the teaching mode. We do not understand what is the learning. Learning on the side of the student. What is his take home? How much learning he has, how much retention value he has down the lane, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Then there is no effective formal national system to support teaching faculty development. Barring 66 academic staff colleges whose performance is very, very poor. Recently, NAC carried out an assessment of academic staff colleges and recommended the closure. That kind of a academic staff college who are supposed to be providing the faculty development program we have. And what we are doing, we means the teachers, the faculty. We are using outdated pedagogies, input oriented. Once again, it is a teaching, lecture based, rather than a student centric, inquiry driven, and outcome based. What is the learning? We are not focused as yet on that. Then we have a rigid assignment system with the students, which encourages rote learning. Just mug it up, vomit out in the examination, and not that students' broader skills and deep understanding. We are not focused as yet on that. Basically, overall, lack of effective quality assurance system in teaching and learning is the main root cause of the current problems. And to sum up the whole thing, this is what government has done. Government has reduced higher education budget in the current financial year by 3,900 crores, reduction of 23%. So while on next 6 years we are supposed to be having 800 universities, 40,000 colleges, and I don't know how many numbers of faculty, their training, their quality, the government focus is going down and down. So who will come in these shoes and what will be done? Only time will tell. However, we have taken some initiative. We have taken initiative. We have established a higher education academy for development to pitch in to do a bit what we think we can do it. The Higher Education Academy for Development is established by NPO, registered in the society known as Evolution. We believe that the highest level of human development at all corners of the world is possible by enlightened persons only, coming out of the galleries of higher education institute. These corridors of wisdom and professionalism can only be lighted by highly committed, devoted, and learned faculty. The aim of the academy would be to create and provide best faculty for the college, institutes, universities in India and abroad. It is our resolve to operate even this head as a non-profit organization on year-to-year basis and not on the commercial basis. Our vision, the Higher Education Academy vision, is to get established as a unique and truly future global university for creating the master faculty, guides and mentors in all fields of lifelong learning. The mission is to establish itself and evolve as a premier knowledge, skill and development academy for faculty in Asia. Academy will strive for enhancing learning and teaching experience of postgraduate fellows for taking up teaching career in higher education space. Our immediate goal is to attain the mission. The academy will open its first knowledge, skill and development center in NCR at Noida. It shall start full-time faculty molding program somewhere in the mid-June for 5 to 6 months. As I said, the program will train young postgraduate students who wish to pursue academics and teaching in higher education. That is where we are going to pitch in, whereby we will be creating faculty academy show. So far, there is no such system, no training in India or near around in the Asia region for training the faculty and make them a capable faculty so that their output, the students, can be the effective managers, engineers, lawyers, and doctors, every field. The program, so far designed, will have numerous learning activities, not teaching activity. Please mind, please see. It will have learning activities through various pedagogical models. It will have modules on the research methodology for the students from postgraduate to move to the research mode. It will have models on clearing net and PhD exams of various universities so that the students, future faculty, can enroll themselves and start the research work. And then they will also be teaching in 2 courses at selected management and engineering law courses under guidance of the institute as well as the concerned institute. Last not the least, to bridge the gap between future students, future managers, future engineers, between academia and the industry, even the faculty here, while under training, will be doing 1 month on-the-job training in the selected industries. That is what, in brief, what we intend to do. If you want to know more about it, the website is given, www.indianhead.in. You can log on to that, you can see it, and if any one of you wants to pursue, your friend wants to pursue the career in the teaching, you can join us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jain, for your overview of higher education and giving us a brief about HEAD. I think it is definitely an innovative and desirable initiative. Moving on, our next speaker is Dr. Manisha Priyam. Dr. Manisha Priyam is a doctorate from the London School of Economics and Political Science, the Department of International Development. On 21st February, her book titled Aligning Opportunities and Interests was launched by Mr. Yashwant Sinha, Mr. N.K. Singh, and Lord Meghanand Desai. This is the first comparative work in a major area of development-related policy change in India. Her other areas of research include urban policy and politics, the political economy of democratic decentralization, and the policy reforms in higher education. She has co-authored Human Rights, Gender and the Environment with Krishna Menon and Madhurika Banerjee in 2009 and has contributed an essay titled From Clients to Citizens and Social Dynamics of the Urban. She combines practical policy work alongside more academic persuasions, having worked as an advisor, international collaboration with Delhi government's Mission Convergence, and with Poverty Unit of UNDP India. Dr. Priyam has also worked on various educational projects of the Government of India and the World Bank. She is a regular political commentator in the electronic media on issues of development policy and politics, and her writings have been published in the Economic and Political Weekly, Seminar, Indian Express, Outlook, Mint, and the Hindu. Before her current assignment, she taught political science at Gargi College and Hindu College, University of Delhi. May I invite Dr. Manisha Priyam?
You put the PowerPoint there.
The laptop will be connected. Just only then you transfer the content. Thank you. We'll just take 30 seconds to record this.
Okay, I'm Manisha Priyam. Thank you for the wonderful introduction and the very warm invitation. I wish you good luck with your venture, but I don't know much about what the institution is about or is going to do, and what I have to say, therefore, would necessarily be about what I know and not necessarily about what you're planning to do. Now, and I'm a researcher and an academic, so pardon me if my ideas and views are different from whatever you think is happening to higher education in India, or whatever you think is going to be done with higher education in India. I can see for once the room consists of a lot more of the older generation people, and maybe about 30% of the young ones. I'm not sure whether you'd like these caveats or not. Now, these are some reflections that come from data really, and tell you that not all is according to the script book as far as higher education in India is concerned. The discussion that brings us together is largely because of the rising population of the youth in India. We've probably all of us heard about the fact that we are going to or are near reaping what is called a demographic dividend. So this entire discussion on higher education, whether here or elsewhere or in policy arenas, I think the focus of the urgency has come in at this point of time, largely because of the rising population of the youth. Higher education is also the site where you can see the social aspirations are anchored to higher education. Most of us think and believe that getting on to the portals of an institution of higher education is going to lead us up the ladder somewhere. And if we don't get on to higher education, we are not going to rise up the ladder. So it's a mental scale really. It's not about the Mount Everest, but it's about the scale that you build up mentally. You think you'll rise up somewhere, you don't know where, but you think you'll get somewhere if you're there. Now, quite similar to getting onto the moon, you first got to make the model of a rocket in theory, and you've got to do all your math calculations in your head, you've got to do a trajectory which breaks the force of gravity, and then if all your mathematical blueprints are fine, then you build up a little rocket and you do all your math again. You put enough fuel, you energize the whole thing enough, and just on the basis of a mental model, you can reach somewhere, geographically so this time, just on the basis of some math and some really good higher education. So very similar to that, you almost think that higher education is going to be that laboratory which is going to scale you up that ladder, in a sense that working on the lathe machine will not, in a sense that working with needle and thread will not, in a sense that playing with football will not. So this type of mobility model is really linked to what we think are the achievables in life. In real life, we know, for example, that not going to school or not going to college and playing football, and if you get into that top percentile, leads you to mobility as well. In real life, we know, for example, that if you sing or you act and you don't necessarily go to higher education, you do rise up that scale as well. You could be a performer, you could be a player, you could be a sportsman. So the first caveat to this whole model is that what higher education therefore does is that it doesn't focus itself on the exceptional, on the creative. It focuses on that large mass, which doesn't, ultimately there will be one Baichung Bhutia, there will be one Amitabh Bachchan, there will be one Shah Rukh Khan, there will be one M.F. Hussain. So what does that large mass, either of these, do? The large mass is satisfied by the fact that, okay, if I'm not the best football player, if I'm not a Sachin Tendulkar, if I'm not the best actor, if I'm not any one of these big ones, I'm going to go through what is called a structured ladder system. And in that structured ladder system, you've got a school, you've got a nursery, then you've got a school, then you've got secondary, then you've got many models of post-secondary transitions. All of them are again hierarchically linked up. And then you think that if I've done all of these, then I will really become big in life. So rising aspirations, but alongside, apart from the population of the youth and the fact that higher education is linked to aspirations for social mobility, the fact that there are today in India a large number of initially literate people, people who have been through the schooling revolution. A lot of them are people who are knocking at the doors of higher education. Now, the other key question is also that about jobs, low or slow growth in jobs. A lot of people will have you believe if you improve your degree by one more, you will get that better job. Or they would have you believe that we are not doing well in the labor market because we are not doing well in the education and training arena. Now, all of these could be true, but not even true, in the sense that the low or slow growth in jobs is an independent function of the labor market. It's not a function of the higher education arena. But it's also a way in which you keep telling yourself that if I train a little better, if I retrain here, maybe the labor market outcome and the educational market outcomes can both be combined. Now, as an academic, we know that these are two different production functions and may never in reality be aligned. And that's what the research and the data show. Much of the research that tries to tell you is actually not very good research. It tries to tell you that rates of return increase if you increase your degree by one is also not a very valid form of research. Actually, the larger number of returns are gained by first level degrees, which are really only up to the secondary, and then higher education may not necessarily be linked with very high labor market outcomes as well, though a small proportion of those who go through the higher education system do in fact get very high returns. So what happens even in the education and labor market function, when you combine the two, you find that there are some Baichung Bhutias, there are some Sachin Tendulkars, there are some Amitabh Bachchans, there are some Shah Rukh Khans. Only some of us entering the higher education market or higher education institutions come out in the labor market and get the very high salaries that we think higher education can give us. So these are caveats. These are institutions, therefore, that you need to modest understanding of what the outcomes can be. Most of us would have, in fact, partnered with these institutions in the sense that households pay for these levels of education. So households pay for higher education. In a sense, households not just, the higher education is not to that extent, it's not a voluntary or a philanthropic activity. To a certain extent, they allow you to make the transition to the labor market, but to a large extent, it's households that sustain the institutions for higher education, because ultimately it's you who pay for the fees of it, or if they are public institutions through taxes, or if you go through various models of retraining, then you pay for those as well. But higher education captures aspirations in the sense that it allows you, it's a stabilizing mechanism. It tells you that while the transition to the labor market is being made, this may be the interim way through which your stabilization can be done. So the key questions therefore that come up today are: one, what are we going to do with the rising population of youth in the country? What are we going to do with the rising aspirations? What are we going to do with this large number that now has literacy but doesn't know where else to go? What are we going to do with lower slow growth in jobs? What am I going to do with this? Then there are there employability issues with university graduates? Is there a low quality of institutional products? So a number of these questions, each one of them may be unrelated to the other, but these are the key questions because of which today even a small gathering on higher education really evinces a keen interest. Most of us are looking for answers to most of these questions, maybe even more, but these are the things that I normally find people think that, higher education is going to answer most of this for me. Now, I'm going to take you through what's called the population pyramid. This is the 2001 census. If you see, this has a broad base. The lowest is not the broadest. But then when you come to the 10 to 14 type of thing, you got a broad thing there. Now, the population pyramid will change in some time so that the base becomes a perfectly broad base, which means that you will have not just a larger number of the young ones, each of the subsequent slabs also will be a large proportion of the young. So it will change in a manner in which the ratio of the top to the bottom will decline. The top parts, which are really the peak of the pyramid, those parts will decline even further, and the bottom will bulge up to become a full pyramid. And that's something that we'll see now in this census as well as the one that comes next to it. If you see already in the 2011 census, you can see that the bars at the base are getting broader, the top is getting narrower. So that means that the young ones who are born, they are now becoming the peak part. Now this is the peak part that goes to schools, that goes to college, and also becomes your young labor. Remember always, the very young ones and the very old ones, those at the top and the bottom, are neither the labor force nor are they the students. So there is to a certain extent an overlay, though there is a delayed overlay between the higher education market and the age profile, because slightly older generation people will come. So this in a sense tells you.
Excuse me, can you enlarge the slide if possible to make it full screen?
Yeah, sure.
Just press F5. And maybe it will help to have those lights off.
Maybe or maybe not, because I'm still only hypothetically speaking, and you can. No, don't worry about it, because I just want to make a point that this is what will happen. So you can just imagine the tree and you can circulate the PowerPoint and read the final print of it. It looks like a tree. So the point to be made here is that this entire generation is what, the bottom bars are really the key to our discussions here. So, so really, in a sense, this is a tremendous, this one is even smaller. So let's see if we can increase this, because this is certainly want it to be.
Madam, slideshow, please go to slideshow. Go to slideshow and it will give you full screen.
Just press F5. Yeah, this is full.
And can we have those lights off? Because it's.
Actually, I was asking for the lights on.
So those lights which are close to the screen.
Those
Yeah, okay. You can put those off and put some on here. Does that help? Is this bigger than the first one?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's so good.
Can you put something on here? Light here. Yeah.
Switch on some light here.
Okay, so now here I've done an overlay of what's called the education profile of the working age population. Remember, here the determinant is the working age population. We are simply looking at who's in the labor market at 2 points of time, and we are looking at their education profile. Now, if you see in 1991, 55% of those who were in the labor market were really illiterate. So it didn't make a difference to the labor market in 91. Almost half of those who entered the labor market were illiterate. Now, if you go down the ladder, and on an enlarged slide, you could see this, that graduates and above were really only 5% of the labor market. So, therefore, the rate of returns thesis disaggregated by education profile of the working age population tells you that the returns may be high, you may be getting a very high salary, but a very small proportion of those on the labor market are actually highly educated people. So that's myth number one. High education is not necessarily correlated to a guarantee of a high labor market outcome. Now, by 2001, predictably so, there is a decline. So, in a sense, the labor market is also not something which is out there and which consists of very big employers with lots of money. The big employers are few. Those with very high levels of critical education are few. The labor market is itself shaped by the institutional capacity of the, if you have a large number of illiterates, that's who will employ. So it's not as if you could make a critical dent there. But by 2001, since the number of illiterates in India declines very sharply on an all-India level, and what was earlier known as the Bimaru states by demographer Ashish Ghosh, those numbers in those states begin to decline. So by 2001, we see that of the total proportion of the working age population, the education profile is somewhat better, isn't it? Amongst the employed, only 42% are illiterate. Graduates and above become slightly or marginally higher at 7%. But no dramatic breakthroughs as of now. Now, the labor data for 2011 census that we could superimpose will be available to us in the next 1 or 2 years, and we could see whether we have made a dramatic dent to the education profiles by 2013, 14 or not. It will be very soon available, and then we can see whether it's been made or not. My hunch is that some change will be made in the proportion of the illiterates. I see it declining maybe to a 35% plus level, but no more. Therefore, a large proportion of our people employed will, over 1/3, will still continue to be those with bare or basic degrees. There's been a change in the sense that literate with no real formal qualification, that's a new NSS category. That's the category that begins to displace the earlier illiterate. So people who can read and write their names or make signatures, those are the numbers that begin to increase. Now, this labor market outcome you see in the face of what can be called dramatic changes in the educational profile of the population. Now, in this, if you just begin to see the two bars stacked up here tell you that between 99 and 2000, the proportion of those who are acquiring higher and higher degrees begins to increase a lot. For each of those slabs, the last one, 47.7, declines to 31.8, which means the number of illiterates are going down. The top becomes a more heavier part. Barely literate are 8.8, but look at the number of those who completed primary. 10% or more in 99, 2000 to 13% and over. Middle and higher, that's where the bulge is. So apart from the demographic dividend, in the second bar, the purple component that you see, you can see the bulge there. So if you combine, for example, those with primary and middle and higher, what's the number that you have? You've got like a good 40% with certain basic degrees. Now that's really the component that's going to be coming out and asking for jobs. So what we are looking at, even in terms of training mechanisms, I do think that the whole priority, I don't know how institutionally efficient they will be, I don't know what the pathways will be, but the institutional priority, therefore, on skill development is really the order of the day. That refers really to the green bar and to the purple bar. Not as much the red one, though the red ones should be pulled out also to get them included here. And if you pull the red, the green and the purple, the red quality is not so good. If you pull in the red, the green and the purple, you've reached the 50% marker of employment. So to a certain extent, in the next decade or so as well, I think that institutions of very higher education are, from the labor market point of view, from the point of view of the kind of demographic dividend. Demographic dividend is also, I mean, I can say flatly, this is the education profile, nearly 50% will be of this type. So I would say that this is the band to look at. Higher education will continue to remain irrelevant from the point of view of the large proportion of those who enter the labor market. Now, the other point that's never made, but I must, if you look at this title carefully, this is men and women in employment. This is simply an education profile of those who already have the jobs. So this has nothing to do with how much you've studied and whether you've studied and you've got the job or not. India doesn't have very efficient ways of measuring what are called labor market outcomes straight out of education institutions, because for those the data needs to be from educational institution and then transition to the labor market, and that needs to be traced institutionally, and we don't have simply efficient mechanisms to do that. So what I've got in this slide is really something very different. The title of the slide needs to be seen. Now here we're simply going to the labor market and saying, okay, of those who are already employed, what does the education profile look like? Now you'll find that you look at the same thing. That's all that I've done. I haven't done anything great. I haven't done any analytical stuff yet. I've looked at the same data from the point of view of the population. I've looked at the same data from the point of view of employment. I've looked at the same data from the point of view of where you go and study. Now here I'm again looking at a cross tab between 2 and 3. I'm looking at those already in employment. And I'm saying, okay, let's see what your employment profile is like. And these are all robust NSS surveys of the labor market. Now, again, if you see, what's the preponderance here? Simply, those who do not study. 94% of the men find employment. So overall, this table tells you two things. The first thing that tells you is that this type of table is really a rarity in India. 50% of women are self-selected. Even if you've not studied, 90% and above, 95% of the men will find jobs. Only 40% of the women will find jobs. So whether you studied or not, women simply don't find the jobs. So we have, and I have not still disaggregated this by caste. I can give you fantastic data if I disaggregate this by caste. So women simply don't find a job. I think we must be then, therefore, amongst the rare in India who not only got jobs, we've also got a respectable chair to come and talk to you in India International Center. This is not the order of the day. So we may pretend to be a democracy, we may pretend to be an advanced liberal democracy, but we are not doing well for women in the labor market. Now, the second one, literate without, these are not my category, these are NSS categories. NSS makes these fine distinctions for you to be able to understand things at a very granular and fine level. So that you don't argue back with me and say, oh, you say this, but I have found this. And I really don't want to understand what you have found, because the NSS has found this in very, very fine slabs. Now, if you simply look at categories 1, 2, and 3, in my understanding, not literate, literate without formal school, literate below primary are all similar types of categories. Now, it tells you that in each of these categories, women simply perform at half or less than half. Fine. So for women, if you keep going down the ladder and see at the postgraduate and above level of those employed, of those in employment, for men at each level, consistently better opportunities than for women. So this is an open and shut case. Really, it's an open and shut case that when we are, I can tell you now many slides, we can go on and on about saying how we need to increase our GER in higher education and how we need to do this, how we need to do that. Unless there's a major dent that we make in the way we are performing with what were the 3 slabs on the bar chart, the red, the green, and the purple, that's where the story of India's demographic dividend lies. So much of what we, for example, even if we just focused on making 5 good universities, and if we can just put on the lights, and I'm just going to shut this off because I'm going to use the last couple of minutes to just tell you that from the knowledge point of view, I mean, I wish you good luck. Please go ahead and do the ventures that you think you want to do. Simply from a national outcomes point of view, we still need to focus on those three slabs that I'm talking to you about. Otherwise, we will continue and persist to be a country that doesn't look at mass outcomes from the point of view of where the mass needs are. And the mass needs really are in terms of improving the quality of these three, still more than what you can do to the top slab and to this. For the top slab, the ideas that we have still in India, those were coming in the last few slides, which I still don't think we are uh, in that stage where we can institutionally talk about. I mean, we could still continue to focus on having very good IITs, very good medical institutions, not simply the IIMs. I do think we should have much less of the management institutions. They are really a market function, and if they are there, then industry should pay for it. But we should continue to focus on technology. We could continue to focus on medical, for example. We should continue to focus on producing workers for primary healthcare centers. That could be between a medic and a paramedic function. We should continue to have twinning arrangements rather than training institutions between institutions that are very good and those that are there in far-flying and outlying areas. Rather than do a NAC accreditation, what we really need to do is create competition pools of sorts. I mean, there should be an institutional competition where an IIT Delhi, for example, could become the training hub for a regional network of technology-oriented institutions. And those institutions that want to get into a twinning arrangement with IIT Delhi, for example, should prove that they are good enough to get into that. So this way we'll be able to build up a pool of well-trained institutional reservoir. Higher education does continue to be a highly technical, highly resource-intensive thing. We do need to. I mean, if we did not have our IITs, imagine where we would be on that global map where we still are not. So my arguments still, in conclusion, are largely to say that we need to focus on the three bars, simply looking at where we are demographically, simply looking at where we are in terms of statistic, how we perform on the labor market. And I'm also side by side saying that in higher education, rather than talk of increasing the GERs, what's going to happen if you keep increasing your gross enrollment ratios? You're going to make a claim on public money, which is nothing else but it's household money in another form. Or if you're going to force people and say, look, you need to be a cleaner of my house, but please get a BA degree from somewhere, that cleaner will then borrow from banks, education as a priority sector lending, borrow from banks, get to a college for an undergraduate degree. How does that skill her or not? It actually, if she's a woman, it disadvantages her. She's self-selected. 50% of those who graduate out will not get a job. So the real focus has to be on those who are getting out, transitioning from the school. And rather than a university function, this is indeed a school function. Now that also means that India will have and should have far fewer of the type of institutions that we think it should have. It should have a far greater number of the ones that we don't want to put our hands in, because we don't know how to model the institutional success of it all and the human resource of it all. What we really require are very basic level institutions, and how to hub that, how to network that. Do you want to work with a hub and spoke model? How do you stabilize that? Those remain the challenge and horizon of the future from an academic type of view. But of course, any initiative in education is a welcome initiative, and that society begins to take its higher education seriously is also a welcome turn and change for the society. The perspective, however, continues to remain that of what the broader picture of education is. So I don't know whether you want to take the question now, because I will leave soon.
I want to go early.
Yeah.
You can,
Do you have questions? And I'd be open to taking one or two.
Madam, I'm Jay Murma from Military Engineer Services. There has been talk of investing more in higher education in our country, not for a decade but for many decades. And we have seen the results also globally, like China coming up leading the global economy through investment in education particularly and higher education. And in our country, smaller countries like Philippines also are coming up. Then why our policy makers have lost the track? I mean, you have been interacting with them. Where is the problem? Why we have not been able to make any headway in this direction?
I think the question is the answer. But it's true that the exchequer, public money expenditure has gone up in higher education in real as well as nominal terms. So it's not as if we've not made the expenditure. Where it has gone, what has been done with it, those are matters of debate. But do not believe, even by any stretch of imagination, that we've been underspending in higher education. That money is gone up. There are other parts of that story. That story can again be disaggregated. For example, the per pupil expenditure has been going down. If the enrollment is still low, if the enrollment goes up, that expenditure would become even lower in per pupil terms. So, per pupil is only one indicator of things. The real indicator is, ultimately it's not rocket science. A good college or a good institution requires a certain amount of input. I don't want to dishearten you, not in training, in research. You don't really make good college teachers by training them on, there's nothing called pedagogy in higher. Was Newton trained in any pedagogy? No, he wasn't. Did he go to a refresher course by a management? No, he didn't do any of those things. Good teachers are good teachers, that's defined.
But Newton was not a good teacher. He was a good researcher.
We can go, so higher education is a
if you have
research.
to teach the children, you have to be a good teacher.
No, at college we don't teach children. At college we have young adults, and college is a knowledge product. That's the problem.
Correct, even that thing has to be cultivated in their mind.
No, it doesn't have to be cultivated in their minds. It has to be a good knowledge product. And a good knowledge product is not the result of cultivation, it's the product of good. How many Delhi IIT teachers do you think went through a cultivation process or a research process? So ultimately, what you call curriculum is not curriculum. There's a difference between what happens in schools and what happens in colleges. It has to be good knowledge per se. In schools, it could still be about the aesthetic, about the cultivation, about the prayer, about the discipline. At the levels of higher education, you have to let go of controls and disciplines. The best universities around the world, nowhere there could be a teaching skills workshop. But the first requirement to be a teacher for an institution in higher education are really some measures. I don't think degrees could be measures, research products could be measures. Around the world are research products. It's not about training and cultivating. Different institutions have different needs. The army could be about training and cultivating the mind. Many jobs could be about training and cultivating the mind. Jobs on the shop floor could be about training and cultivating to get the same size, but not jobs of higher education, where we require great levels of, for example, you named a number of countries. It surprises us that Taiwan today, in terms of scientific patents, is far ahead of us. Great investments in science and technology, cutting edge R&D. So one of the things where the industry in our country also, I think the government has made huge strides by pumping in public money where it is needed. Has the industry put in money in R&D?
If we want to focus on research and development, a very high cutting edge research and development, be it in the basic science, engineering, or for medical science for that matter, the route to that research and development goes to higher education.
So higher education is research and development. It's not route, it is research and development. We want to make our undergraduate colleges more like the schools that we go through, but higher education is R&D. Higher education is a part of R&D. And therefore, all undergraduate colleges around the world are not a part of school education course. They are a part of college and university systems. There could be different ways in which they affiliate or are integral, or the university is a mother institution. The undergraduate colleges, it's our desire to control them that we say, कि, इनको हम प्रशिक्षित करते हैं. आप कहीं और कीजिए हो. यहाँ आप भूलिए मत that the more we make knowledge institutions, we don't have to fear a knowledge society. We don't have to fear knowledge. Knowledge will critically come back and tell us what we are not. It will tell us what he's already said.
Madam, I just wanted to.
Do you think China, for example, has not done it? China has done it. It may not be a democracy in the sense that we are, but since '93, India and China have gone divergent tracks, precisely because China decided to invest in its higher education more than it did in its primary. Of course, it's another story that it got both right. It's got its primary right, it got its higher right. A large part of China's story really was out of twinning arrangements. Twinning your rural area institutions with better institutions. Would our IITs want to twin with rural area engineering colleges? No, I mean today the problem is we've got a large number of them of poor quality. Now you can invest in faculty to train, but would an engineering college become better by training the faculty how to teach, or by simply what is the unknown factor of X improving the institutional capacity? If they don't know how to research, get them on to the IIT Delhi research projects, for an example, so that they learn how to do this. Put in competitive grants for research. Let everybody bid for good research projects. But let also the industry come out and say, for long the industry's needs for high-end trained labor has actually been subsidized by the government. The best has been produced on government money out of publicly funded institutions. Time for the industry now to come back and say, we will put big research grants. Let there be an open competition for those, but let the industry now pay back in terms of increasing the robustness of the institutional provision. So it's really about making better quality institutions. That's really the challenge that India faces. I mean, no two ways about it. We could pluck teachers out, get them to do anything, but ultimately the challenge is to produce a knowledge institution. I mean, ISC is not a knowledge institution. ISC is only a platform. But a college, for example, there's a Dayal College right in our neighborhood. Do you want to do this there? We don't want to do it there. Because that college has not been able to develop into a knowledge hub. It still remains an interim training measure between getting out of school and waiting to get into a postgraduate level institution. So most of our undergraduate institutions, by measures of educational yardstick, are basically waiting of entering devices. You are delaying the entry of our graduates into the labor market by 3 more years. Yeah, please.
The statistics that you presented seems to suggest that the growth in the upper slab, the higher education slab, is the fastest. While it was correct that the middle slabs are larger than the higher slab, but the growth in the higher slab seems to be the fastest.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think I'm not sure that I agree with your conclusion that higher education is going to be irrelevant
for the labor market.
Because it's the fastest. And while it's certainly true that as a country we need to invest in primary education and that central slab, but the question is that we can't say that the higher education is irrelevant.
No, you can't say this, but the labor market is telling us that in terms of labor market outcomes, ultimately the higher education slab is also the slab which is paid for by the household, not as much as the schools, etc. These are largely measures of free and uniform provision at the lower end of the slab. Now, the more you go up, the out-of-pocket expenditure to be able to sustain the levels of that level of education are far higher. Now, this growing, therefore the rate of growth being fastest in the top slab is telling you simply that Indians today believe that higher education will lead me somewhere, whereas still the labor market outcomes are not as efficient as the belief of the household in higher education is. When you get to, for example, remember, always there's a time lag. When I get an enrollment for a BA degree, I'm 3 to 5 years away from the labor market. When I transition from a BA degree, I'm still maybe 2 years away from a labor market because I'm still waiting for a topper degree. So the household has already invested in a higher education degree before the transition person can even get to the labor market. So the lag effects will be known only later in the labor market, but the current trends, if there are anything to go by, they continue to persist against women. They continue to persist, showing very few of those with very high degrees. They could get the same type of job even with a far lower level of degree. So you're correct in saying that you observe that there's a fast rate of growth. Yes, there is a fast rate of growth. You're correct in saying that yes, if it's fast, then the number of people are going there. It's fast because a large number are going there. but it only still exhibits the promise of the household in going there. It still doesn't tell us what's changing in the labor market because of that. And remember, if faith in labor markets shake, then people will stop putting their money, for example, in a no Kashmiri shawl maker would any longer be training his son in the fine art of making a shawl. They'd much rather send their son to a medical school or a management school or a. Do you know many schools where you can be taught how to make Kashmiri shawls, how to embroider them? Largely family craft. And if the returns are low, then those who are persisting with these skills can continue to make that. If the returns in the labor market are low, the perverse signaling or adverse signaling to the households will happen if the labor market outcomes do not increase. And my difference, only point of difference on therefore all measures, your observations continue to hold as much as mine. The only difference is that if labor market outcomes remain as adverse as they currently are, then household believe higher levels of investment may take a different direction. We don't know yet. And that's where the institutional robustness of higher education must be increased, so that the levels of support that you have support from the government, remember, you have support from households, and that's why you're able to sustain a fast increasing pace. I'm not going to those figures, but I can tell you that the number of institutions has also increased 30 times in the last 10-15 years of higher education institutions. So there's been a dramatic increase of enrollments, dramatic increase of institutions. The whole landscape has changed, but will certainly not continue in an equilibrium model if there is a lag effect on. Can I just close? I'm sure there must be others.
Madam, the last thing. Can this exchange between institution and industry play some role in increasing interest towards?
Absolutely. Most the model around the world, barring China, which is a state-controlled economy, tells us that industry has had a very important role to play in sustaining higher education. Indian industry continues to be something which is off the hook. It makes the state pay for higher education. It also criticizes the state for not having done enough. But the real criticism is the fact that the industry says your graduates are not very employable is also the fact that the industry requires some other form of training or skill into them and still wants the government to come back and provide that range of skills. So really the industry wants to continue to ask the public exchequer to pay for basic education, to pay for higher degrees, as well as for some amount of acquisition of skills training. To that extent, there should be a greater interchange and greater interchange of ideas between industry and the state. The industry is also very keen to privatize higher education and become a provider, because that's something where you are able to ask the household to sustain the institution provision. But what the industry needs to do is to be able to not just enter the arena of private institutions. The private higher education institution is a profit-making venture, but the industry needs to play a partner role in improving the quality of your public institutions. Because for China and India, the problem remains the same. The quality of your public institutions has to improve, even if you build a world-level IIT type, 1 more, 10 more, 100 more. You need to improve the efficiency of your public institutions. You need to have more public ways of seeing that all the other institutions that you have, you got them through AICT or through management accreditation institutions. Having done all that, if the quality is not good, the household faith will shake. And I do think these are all public functions. To maintain the quality of your institutions is a public function. Ultimately, it's a piece of paper, a degree in which people are putting their faith. That's the kind of faith people have. So to sustain the faith of people in paper instruments such as degrees, you've got to increase the institutional robustness. As the rupee, for example, is a promissory note, the degree is a credential, and more robust ways of public accreditation need to sustain this factor. Thank you. Take leave and sorry.
Just 2 minutes.
No. Okay, thank you. I'm holding up the others.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priyam, for your informative talk. Ladies and gentlemen, since due to very urgent commitment, Dr. Priyam has to leave. May I request Mrs. Madhu Jain to come and present a memento as token of our gratitude to Dr. Manisha Priyam. Madam, we are indeed grateful to you for sparing your time and delivering such a thought-provoking talk. Thank you once again.
Thank you. I'm sorry to be holding up here.
Our next speaker is Dr. Neeti Sinha from IMS Law College, Noida. Dr. Neeti Sinha has over 15 years of teaching experience. She received Women Achievers Award for Excellence in Teaching in 2010 on the occasion of International Women's Day in Delhi. Dr. Sinha has organized and participated in various national and international seminars and conferences. She conducted the seminar on moral values of teaching and has also coordinated and participated in National HR Seminar on Managing Human Capital in Global Meltdown, National Law Seminar on New Dimensions of the Intellectual Property in Globally Competitive Business Environment. Dr. Neeti Sinha has also organized international conference on intercultural communication and has participated in national seminar at IPM Law Academy on Justice Delayed, Justice Denied. Further, she has also coordinated and participated in the seminar on Women in Law, Emerging Trends in 21st Century. Dr. Sinha has been an active participant in different talk shows on television related to social and educational issues and has also presented views and opinions on different topics through communities radio. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Neeti Sinha. We will have a question and answer round after the speakers are done with their talk. For the question and answer, you have the speakers on your desk, and anyone else requires can ask for the portable mics.
Thank you, Dr. Pallavika. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen present here. I would like to congratulate, first of all, Dr. Jan for taking this initiative and effort in relation to the higher education in our country. Because as my prior speaker told you all, that taking degree doesn't mean everything, because when the what labor force says, that is also very important, because holding a degree and being industry ready, these are two separate things, and we need to understand this very clearly, that by educating our students, we are not we are not completing our work, because we need to make them industry ready also. So the topic in this conference is present status of legal education and pedagogy of law teaching in India. Law has always been very important in Indian scenario. All our freedom fighters and all leading persons in our country have gone through this law procedure. Means they have been holding this degree. But what is the condition in current scenario, that we'll be discussing in our presentation. Legal education in India generally refers to the education of lawyers before entering into practice. Legal education in India is offered at different levels by the traditional university and the specialized law universities, and schools only after completion of an undergraduate degree or as an integrated degree. Unlike other forms of professional education, such as medicine and engineering, law education is both professional as well as liberal. It aims at the acquisition of professional skills if taken as a professional education. but it can aim at value-oriented socio-cultural education if it is considered as a liberal education. Rule of law in any developed state can only be ensured by enlightened students. Imparting of legal education has always been considered as one of the noblest professions. Legal education, which is part of general education, cannot be viewed in isolation. Today, legal education derives its impetus from the economic, social, and political setup of the society. Law is the cement of society and an essential medium of change. The significance of legal education in a democratic society cannot be overemphasized. Here, I'd like to mention one thing that earlier, after graduation, students used to come in this law degree, but these days we have integrated law course. I think everybody must be aware about it. Here, after 12th, there is a big question in the mind of students, parents also, and in students also. And students are very confused that in which area of higher education they should move. And but seeing the last scenario, last 10-15 years records, we have felt that now there is a big amount of people, there is a big huge crowd for the law studies also, because say, after this liberalization and globalization, they have got many opportunities, and this will be covering in our coming slides. The legal education is imperative not only to produce good lawyers, but also to create cultured, law-abiding citizens who are inculcated and concepts or human values and human rights. The quality and standard of legal education acquired at the law school is reflected through the standard of bar and bench, and consequently affect the legal system. The rule of law is the basic foundation of our democracy. Rule of law says that be you ever so high, the law is above you. Education has wider implications. It stands for development. Education makes men perfect. In the word of Swami Vivekananda, it is the manifestation of perfection already in man. Again, legal education makes man law-abiding and socially conscious. Legal education helps in bringing and establishing socio-economic justice. Change is the law of nature, and law is the regulator of social change. Legal education is the heart and the very soul of the society for administering rule of law in a democratic country like ours. Therefore, quality legal education is to be imparted to the people, taking into consideration the changing needs of the society and in the changing era of globalization. Various law schools in India, however, successfully challenged this institutionalized mediocrity and succeeded in attracting serious students to the study of law. But the lack of researchers in law and absence of due emphasis on research and publications in the existing law schools have led to the absence of an intellectually vibrant environment. The reformers of the higher education system are central to developing a knowledge-based society in India. Within the paradigm of such reforms, drastic steps needs to be taken to address the numerous challenges facing legal education in India, because law and legal education has an important role to play in protecting rule of law and the democracy as a whole. Lawyers are the backbones of the society and they are social engineers. Globalization has brought a tough competition in educational service sector. We are facing tough competition not only from within but also from outside the country. Internationalization and globalization of the legal profession and the probable entry of foreign lawyers into India in the near future possesses a serious threat to the legal professionals in India. As a result of the unprecedented changes induced by technology and globalization, all professions, including legal professions, are forced to rethink their method of management and delivery of services. Curriculum of legal education and globalization. The legal education in India is regulated by multiple agencies, including University Grant Commission, Bar Council of India, the government, and respective university authorities. To come out the problem, the Bar Council of India itself decided to establish a model law school in the private sector or joint sector to bring reform in the legal education. As a result, the National Law School of India University was established in Bangalore in the year 1986. However, at present, the number of national law schools has increased. At various times, curriculum of legal education was changed by the Bar Council of India, but these were not sufficient to meet the new challenges of globalization in the 21st century. The National Law Commission was, however, established by the Prime Minister of India in 2005 to recommend and undertook reform in order to make India knowledge-based economy and society. The National Knowledge Commission, while deliberating on issues related to knowledge concepts, recognizes legal education as an important constituent of professional education. The curricula and syllabi must be based in a multidisciplinary body of social science and scientific knowledge. Curriculum development should include expanding the domain of optional courses, providing deeper understanding of professional ethics, modernizing clinic courses, mainstreaming legal aid program, and developing innovative pedagogic methods. With the advent of globalization, it has become increasingly important to include international and comparative law perspectives in the era of globalization. We should pay attention in four important factors to improve the standard of legal education. These four important factors are global curriculum, global faculty, global degrees, and global interactions. We have to think globally but act locally. Law is one of the most dynamic subjects of the world. Dynamism is the lifeblood of law. A law which is static cannot survive for long and will be rejected by people for whom the law will be implemented. So, to keep pace with the changing situation of the world, we have also to change by addition, subtraction, or cancellation of the existing curriculum of the legal education in India. Otherwise, in future, it will lose its importance and will turn into a relic of the past. Law degrees in India are granted and conferred in terms of the Advocates Act 1961, which is a law passed by the Parliament both on the aspect of legal education and also regulation of conduct of legal profession. Under the Act, the Bar Council of India is the supreme regulatory body to regulate the legal profession in India and also to ensure the compliance of the laws and maintenance of professional standards by the legal profession in the country. In this regard, the Bar Council of India prescribes the minimum curriculum required to be taught in order for an institution to be eligible for the grant of a law degree. The Bar Council also carries on a period supervision of the institution conferring the degree and evaluates their teaching methodology and curriculum, and having determined that the institution meets the required standards recognizes by institution and the degree conferred by it. However, upon the suggestions by the Law Commission of India and also given the prevailing cry for reform, the Bar Council of India instituted upon an experiment in terms of establishing specialized law universities solely devoted to legal education and thus to raise the academic standard of legal profession in India. The decision was taken somewhere in 1985 and thereafter the first law university in India was set up in Bangalore, which was named as the National Law School of India University. These law universities were meant to offer a multidisciplinary and integrated approach to legal education. It was therefore for the first time that a law degree other than LLB or BL was granted in India. Thereafter, other law universities were set up, all offering 5 years integrated law degree with different nomenclature. The next in line was National Law University, set up in Bhopal. It was followed by Nalsa University of Law, set up in 1998. The National Law University Jodhpur offered for the first time in 2001 the integrated law degree of BA, BBA LLB honors, which was preceded by the West Bengal National University of Judicial Sciences, offering the BSc LLB honors degree. KIIT Law School, Bhubaneswar became the first law school in India in 2007 to start integrated law in 3 different streams and honors specialization. These were BA, BBA and BSc LLB with honors. However, despite these specialized law universities, the traditional 3-year degree continues to be offered in India by other institutions and are equally recognized as eligible qualifications for practicing law in India. The Bar Council of India kick-started the next level of evaluation in legal education in the country through the founding of National Law School of India University. The establishment of this premier law school in Bangalore has brought about a paradigm shift in teaching of and research in law. The Bar Council of India visits and inspects universities, law colleges in the country as part of its statutory function of promoting legal education and laying down standards in consultation with the universities in India and the state bar councils. These pedagogical initiatives have been far more successful. Clinical programs are invariably taught like the rest of the courses. Placement programs are seen as stepping stones to a future job, but seldom viewed as an extension of the learning experience in the classroom. In the social sciences, experiential learning offers the student an insight into their own and other social worlds by immersing themselves in it. In legal studies, experiential learning brings a rigorous and continuous engagement with the law in the books as well as the legal profession. The class format should combine lecture, discussion, seminar, clinics and tutorials with a primary focus on seminars and workshops. Students are expected to prepare for and participate in class discussion on a regular basis. The main difference between law and other social sciences subjects is that legal studies are multidisciplinary in character. In India, owing to its rapid development in professional education, has also provided law as a hot career option to its aspirants. The various law schools and universities in India offer several academic programs in law. The liberalization of economy and expansion of the private sector needed legal expertise beyond courtroom litigation. With their academic rigor and focused training in structured curriculum, National Law School graduates have come out to fit in well with the growing demand for legal professionals in the changing Indian economy. Okay, now we'll be coming to the teaching pedagogy, because teaching pedagogy creates an impression upon the students, because we are not living in a time where a teacher used to come in the classroom and used to deliver his or her lecture and students were satisfied. Now it is not like that. We need to prepare them, as I said in the beginning only, we need to prepare them for the industry, and for that reason teaching pedagogy has to be in a very formal manner. Projects in various subjects should be given to sharpen the researching skills of students at the threshold stage. Regular corporate workshops by distinguished attorneys, managing partners, and associates from national and international law firms on diversified legal and business issues of contemporary significance. Regular guest speaker sessions and seminars with eminent scholars across different sectors in India and outside. Tailored teaching methods as per the students' learning capacity, course content, and learning goal should be given to students. Continuous assessment and assignments with focus on problem-based questions, application of principles, handling dynamic situations, and comparative understanding of issues. Classroom lecture should be by well qualified and experienced faculty. CRE or the courtroom exercise with an emphasis on correct researching, in-depth analysis of precedents, and excellent oratory skills so as to familiarize students with the courtroom atmosphere long before their actual arrival on the legal scene. These exercises should be conducted by the faculty members teaching the respective subjects, and the factual problem which the students argue on deals with the particular area of law of the management courses. Discussions to prepare students for their future roles as public orators, case studies by analyzing past history and trends including business case studies. Simulation techniques for encouraging real life, techniques for encountering real life situations. So these are the teaching methods which should be followed for the law teaching in our country. Only 2-3 are left that I will be covering. One of the key ingredients of the rigorous university education in law sought to be developed in the late 1980s and thereafter was the insistence of the Bar Council of a full-time degree in law, recently overruled by the Supreme Court, which allowed little or no time for an apprenticeship model of learning. Some universities like NLSIU sought to adopt a case law method or more rarely a cases and materials method supplemented by a Socratic teaching style to dominate the classroom learning space. So with this, I'd like to complete my presentation related to teaching of law in our country and what is the actual status through which present status of legal education and pedagogy of law teaching in India we can understand, because our degrees, our certificates are not making our students industry ready. They are not ready to take the challenges once they pass out from the colleges, because after completion of the degree, when they go out and when they go to the courts, they feel that the whole environment has been changed. There is nothing which they have studied in their books and in their classroom. So here the focus should be making our students too much ready for their professional lives. And this is the suggestion, but as taking initiatives, our government has established various national law schools, but there is one point on which we can understand that as we already understand this, that the research and development is the most important thing in any educative area, in any area, may it be management, journalism, law, IT, whatever. In every education area, research should be there, and that we lack in this law area also. And in the appointment of judges, again one question arises that just by passing a BLLB or LLB, they are not able to handle the cases which come in front of us, in front of them. Because for becoming a judge, one has to go a very rigorous training and understanding. That is lacking in our current legal system. So that has to be improved. Other things, if there is any question, I'd like to take. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nidhi, for your presentation. May I now request Dr. Yamini Agrawal to present her talk. Dr. Yamini has 11 years teaching experience in the areas of corporate finance, advanced financial analysis, international finance, new financial models, managerial economics, and e-finance. She has been nominated to pursue the specialized program on strategic business management sponsored by SIDA in Stockholm, Sweden. Her research work has been published in JABS, USA, and Finance India, the Indian Economic Journal, and International Journal of Japan, Romania, France, Lahore, and many others. Dr. Yamini appears frequently on media channels on economic and financial issues. Some of her interviews have frequently appeared on national and international channels like Lok Sabha TV, CNBC Awaaz, A to Z News TV, Uzbek TV, Vietnam TV, and others. She also appears frequently on AIR and Prasar Bharati. Professor Agarwal has chaired over 16 seminars of international and national business schools. She has developed more than 50 case studies in corporate finance and managerial economics. She serves as an invited member on the editorial board of SSERP France. She's also the regional council board member of IACC Delhi and BIS MSD India. Dr. Yamini has two books to her credit: Capital Structure Decisions, Evaluating Risk and Uncertainty, and Capital Structure Decisions under Multiple Objectives. She has traveled over 20 countries as part of IIF's academic collaborations. Dr. Yamini Agarwal.
Well, a very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Dr. Pallavi, for giving me such a good introduction. I'd like to first of all thank Evolution, Higher Education Society, and Dr. Atul Jain for inviting me to come and speak to you on higher education. It was extremely nice to actually hear Dr. Atul Jain, Mrs. Priyam, and Dr. Sinha on higher education, which actually realized and given us very good inputs regarding as to what is higher education in terms of the overall gross enrollments that are there, in terms of what the government's budget stands, and how the government has actually reduced the budget allocations to education. We also heard Dr. Priyam talk about how mobility and social developments are important. She talked about something like the wage premiums that are added when you actually undertake higher education, which is at the postgraduate level and the doctoral level. Well, since this entire conference is based on higher education, I'd like to first present a view and to state that when we talk about higher education, we are not really talking about literacy levels over here. We are going way beyond the literacy levels to talk about. Literacy levels is the beginning from there. You're actually talking about education. The very fact that we talk about ourselves as human beings, which distinguishes us from animals, is the fact that we can read, write, and can assemble our thoughts in a reservoir which can be passed on to generations. When we talk about higher education, we are talking about a set or a reservoir which we are trying to access by way of those readings and writings that are available as quality works or as literary works in our libraries, in our institutions, through different leaders, through people who have made significant contributions to the world, whether Dr. Sinha mentioned about Vivekananda or whether various other leaders who we actually refer to in our political arena, in our educational arena, or in the industry or any other place. When we say higher education doesn't again seem to find boundaries in the educational setups or in the curriculums that we actually see. Higher education is a matter of habit, it's a matter of understanding, it's a matter of creating a mind which will actually lead you or will help you understand different cultures, different perspectives, get you to a neutral ideologies, get you to a society which is more tuned to the idea of tolerance, which is tuned to the idea of being progressive, which is tuned to the idea that you need to create a nation which is progressive, which can have growth, which is not only for the present generation, but is for the future generation and for the generation that has contributed. It is for people who are for the children, the senior citizens, the people who are going to be who have contributed to the world. It is going to be for the women. It is going to be for the people who are working, for the men. It talks about a society which is going to be interdependent on each other rather than being independent. It creates an independence of thought, an independence where people would like to learn about what things are. So when we talk about higher education, again, as coming from an institution which actually primarily talks about finance and has a business, has been regarded as one of the business schools in the area of finance, I will be trying to talk about why financing of higher education is important and why we consider higher education as one of the important areas of growth in this country. But if you look at the publications made out by World Bank, IMF, UNESCO, other agencies, or even our own government, they actually give a lot of importance to higher education, and they give this importance or relevance to higher education not only because they feel that since the Western world is giving a lot of postgraduate degrees, we should do that. They have found significant growth prospects from higher education. What we did see from a time from 1998 onwards, where we were able to break the vicious circle of a low GDP growth rate to a higher GDP growth rate, where we did see that our services sector received a 9% growth rate, which we vouch for by way of our people contributing in our domestic boundaries or by our diaspora actually serving in many of the advanced nations. We do actually find that that growth rate has been coming through the higher education, through the research and development, through the innovation that the intellect of this particular country has been contributing to, whether in India or whether outside the world. Higher education has also been contributing to the livelihoods of people, as some of the previous speakers mentioned, in terms of giving them wage increases by being hireable or let's say being employable at different places. First, we have found that we've been able to create a society which has accepted the newer elements of the technology. So again, when I start about talking about higher education, I will try to bring about why is higher education important, what has been the total overall enrollments that have been there, what has India really contributed in the last 11th plan, what did it really target in the 12th plan. 12th plan no longer would be applicable now because there is a Niti Aayog which is there and the Planning Commission is no longer there. But the 12th plan definitely gives us a sight about an idea about how higher education or primary or secondary education were relevant for our country and what did they foresee. I've also tried to, take up perspectives from different agencies like the World Bank, IMF, or the UNESCO, which refer to as to how financing should be done. I've also tried to see as to what has the Indian culture or the Indian perspectives in terms of creating institutions of relevance have to do in creating higher education. So I start my presentation just a minute. So first of all, when we say higher education, we are trying to find out economic gains versus the non-economic gains. So my first slide actually refers to what people usually say. If you go for higher education, you go beyond your degrees of graduation, or you go for your graduation or your post-graduation, what really does it really have to offer? Most people do understand in an economy like this, where about 30% of our population is below the poverty line, where subsistence living is there, people are living hand to mouth. There is one person who's earning, serving about several mouths in the family. Education is a luxury item in many of the households, maybe not from where we actually we come from, but for a lot of other individuals where there are a large number of people who they have to feed, take care of their basic necessities and other things. So the first question they will ask you, okay, I give you the payment to the university education, what will be your earnings, what will be your payback period, what will be your ROIs, how fast will you start earning and will you start feeding the people who are around. When the government is supposed to bring about expenditures while subsidizing these people who are close to subsistence level or to the other individuals, the government asks the similar question. If we bring about higher education in this country through institutional changes, through reforms, through other things, or we subsidize education, what is the ultimate gain do we get? Well, the answer is the gain that you get actually is in terms of creating higher production possibility curves by enhancing the values of the factor of productions, which will be whether it is increasing the way in which you use your land through educating your agriculturists, educating your service class, educating your interests or others, by actually creating employability factors for your labor, whether it is geographical mobility, whether it is occupational mobility, whether it is skill generation, academic, technical, or generic as you may refer to. We also talk about, let's say, creating more value in terms of capital. Where you invest your capital, how do you invest your capital, what return you get on that capital. So you're again increasing the value for it. We also talk about creation of entrepreneurship. You do see a lot of initiatives done by the government, whether it is skill and vocational courses are concerned, whether it is the government's initiative with respect to starting a CIPI program or trying to take care of the small scale industry units, trying to build people who maybe just, let's say, school pass outs into venturing into newer ventures. So all these factors of production, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship tend to have added value or more productivity as and when they reach out to the higher education. Again, not higher education in terms of the curriculum, higher education in terms of being progressive, in terms of your learning, in terms of the manner you accept newer and different perspectives in life. Okay, when we say economic gains, we are looking in for greater productivity, we are looking in for growth, we are looking for technological development. We do understand that technological development, when we say there are a lot of doctors, engineers, scientists, and many other good people who are actually working abroad and doing extremely good job and who actually create these new technologies which we happen to receive through large number of MNCs at very high premiums. They have not received sufficient amount of, let's say, incentives to create a similar set of technology or innovation in India. I was reading in the newspaper some time back. There was a young boy who was studying or was doing a summer school abroad. He's created a machine for the blind to read and write, where they can bring out these papers for rewriting and reading of these blind students. It's a machine which will cost very low. So, a young student who's again an Indian, a similar set of structures of entrepreneurship or innovation should be provided in India. Again, another thing that is there is in terms of technology. We often say that we're very good at keeping the technology. You introduce a new technology over here, we have a lot of people here who can actually duplicate the technology and present it. When you actually bring them into the set of higher education with the legal framework, as Dr. Sinat had mentioned, they do understand that they're not supposed to really copy it, but to create a newer setup so they can probably learn from there, create a better setup for us to, let's say, lead in a better structure for our growth perspectives. So when we're talking about economic gains, we are looking in for technological absorptions by transfers. We're looking in for greater growth rates by creating factor productivity in all sector services, especially when 9% growth rate is needed. Then again, it meets the high level skill demanded by labor market. One of the speakers mentioned that there is no labor demand. Unfortunately, there is a labor demand, but there is not the needs of the employer, and the employers are not meeting what the industry requires, or where the higher education is required, or where something else is required. They're not meeting the needs over there. Again, progress in the value chain for all sectors. I think the first speaker, Dr. Tulendra, did mention that there are wage premiums as you actually offer postgraduate studies, graduate studies, or you go in for the doctoral level studies. You do receive wage premiums premiums, which are higher levels of earning, which all people are interested in. But then they always look at how many years of loss will we have in terms of earning. So that is why education, which is executive education, distance learning education, or other education fields have also been started. Again, it is believed that with higher education, more people are likely to be employed, that likely to again cover up for poverty which is there in their families, because they will be able to earn more and they'll be able to feed more people. We talk about non-economic gains of higher education, which is more relevant to us. It creates a cohesive society, it creates a tolerant society, it creates a society which is ready to accept other people at large. Nation building activities, or let's say knowing citizens' rights, where you can vote. Let's say art is a very good example of the fact that people do recognize that they can promote the existing political parties who may have not so good backgrounds. They may want to have people who have good backgrounds, who have a different set of thinking. So nation building again, you have inclusions to different social structures which might be created. Again, socialization in the sense that people come together to do community services, creation of civil societies, as you might refer to, let's say the RWAs, NGOs that you see, creation of sevas, creation of other things, are another structure where social setups are important. Creation of microfinance units are again a part of socialization. You don't really need to be a graduate actually, right? But you do have to have the learning or an understanding of the things that are there. Where you do understand small savings can create larger capital gains. And that kind of an understanding does lead to a higher education. We say those people who can read and write are better than those people who don't read and write at all. That's not true. So higher education is supposed to lead you to that reading and writing habits which you're supposed to have. Again, why should we be concerned as an Indian country which has such good services where people are themselves self-recognizing the fact that higher education is important? The fact is, wherever we are in the neighboring we are getting competition from China, we are getting competition from Singapore, whether it is with respect to the total number of doctorates that are being produced. Let's say about, if we produce about 11,000 or so, let's say the 2009 figure that I have, they're producing about 25,000 to 30,000 doctorates. Employable or not, but they are producing doctorates that are there, which is very high. Obviously, they're doing extremely well as we have in diaspora. The Chinese diaspora is also well recognized. Not only the Chinese diaspora is recognized, the manufacturing sector is also well recognized. So we're somewhere or the other losing out on our growth potentials for reaching out the international markets. We are also not sufficiently enough reaching out to our domestic markets. We do have supply chain difficulties in our own country, where we are neither serving our own people, nor are we serving outside, nor are we creating really the gross domestic products which we should actually. Again, you can actually refer to many other examples which are there. Let's say, for example, Singapore. These, why did I pick up these two countries? Well, because these two countries have been specifically spending a lot of money on the state-of-art technology which is there for education, which includes information and communication technologies. So let's say a simple thing like a presentation over here, or a simple thing like video conferencing, or a simple thing like an online structure. If you have people who are wanting to study, then you should provide them the ability to actually be able to reach out to those resources where they can learn. There are different institutions. Let's say there's something called a Khan Academy, which is on YouTube, which teaches or brings about tutorials with respect to education. Online structure. There are other online resources and other resources which are available. So again, reaching out to people, giving them a delivery what they require, giving them the state of technology. Another thing has been found in these regions, and let's say for India, patents are again less as against what China is actually forwarding, where we are patenting about thousands in terms of, let's say, 20,000 or so. Facts. One of the speakers mentioned about research and development. Higher education is supposed to create a mental faculty which leads you to a logical setup of your understanding or development of what we call as cognitive skills, where you can read, write, and think as to how things should be. You just don't accept them as they are, and that is what it is supposed to build through. Again, higher education creates a capacity of higher education require because we need more capacity. We often say that in India we are a society where there is a complete mismatch between demand and supply. We have about a 120 million population, which is the potential population for higher education. We presently only serving about only one-fifth of that potential. So we do need capacity utilization, capacity creation, which can actually serve these 120 million students, potential students which are there, both in terms of accessibility, in terms of cost, in terms of the returns, in terms of the employability and other things. So again, why we do need to finance higher education? Because we need to create that capacity. Again, we want them to actually have a higher standard of living. We want to rise in our human development index. It's a kind of a myth in saying that advanced countries are extremely high on their standard of living. There are people who may actually visit you from Singapore or other places who will say, this country has people who may not have food, who may not have money, who may not have shelter, but they still smile, which is an important aspect. You live for the way or the things that you have, you're happy with it. And somewhere or the other speaks about a little bit about the manner in which we are trying to do things. But it doesn't speak about the standard of living which we are ready to accept. We need to grow ourselves in terms of the standard of living that we have. Higher education promises that standard of living by creating a structure where we can have access to technology, access to our basic needs, access to other things which are available in the world at large. Again, creation of growth engines and development. Growth engines because you will be contributing to your research and development, to better structures of the different factors of production. Again, if you look at the trends which have been observed, this is again from the different institutions that have picked up. They say that the trends that you have actually observed is that most countries have recognized that as and when they become more knowledge-based, they can see more growth. That goes again for India. We do recognize our information technology graduates. We do recognize our doctors. We do recognize your engineers. We do recognize our economists. We recognize other people who are there. So as and when you become knowledge-based economies, you tend to reach higher. Again, there is a continuous demand for higher education because people have seen growth. People have also found that in terms of higher education, the costs have not been reducing. Let's say they've not been reducing one because there has been inflation. They've not been reducing because there is a certain amount of asymmetry in terms of who's providing the education. Higher education again is again limited, or let's say people who are well recognized in higher education are very few, and they happen to act as people who are giving you this education at their behest, and they can then charge you a very large sum. Let's say institutions which are of very high repute IIMs, they have suddenly increased their postgraduate fees. I mean, despite the fact that they're being highly funded by the government, despite the fact that the land, the faculty, and the other things, are the other resources which they're receiving are highly subsidized, they have no justification for fee hike except for the inflation. They have hiked it. As a result, per unit cost for all the people who are trying to access that education has gone up. The government is presently subsidizing about 2,800 or so rupees per capita or per individual. But the government cannot continue to have or provide for subsidies because of our fiscal deficits. We need to retain them in a manner that can be more progressive. Again, we have our pressures coming from many of the international agencies, and if as a country we want to grow, we will have to reduce donor subsidies on education, try to provide for self-reliant institutions that can generate revenues on their own. So your per unit cost is increasing. Inflation though right now is low, but then most international organizations did find it one of the reasons why your tuition fees or your other fees or your infrastructure costs, especially infrastructure costs, has actually increased. Again, there have not been sufficient tax revenues to support them. There is increasing globalization. There is a heavy reliance on non-tax revenues. Non-tax revenues again. Right now, the university has not increased their tuition fees, but there is a continuous thought process that they should also increase their tuition fees, like one of these IIMs or the others. But if they do so, then even graduation would be a difficult stance for a lot of people who are close to their subsidies level. Again, something important that has been found is that people who are actually studying in our country as against other countries which are advanced countries, higher education is largely paid out of their own earnings. Students usually earn first and then they pay for their higher earnings. So when they're doing their MBAs, they're doing their graduation, they actually already have their own earnings and they're more accountable and responsible to them. As against our country or the Asian economies where most of our parents are actually cutting their pockets and sending their kids to be educated, and where they're less accountable, less responsible, or may not be taking that so seriously as they should actually. Again, there is an increasing liberalization. We as a country would want more people to come to our country and get educated. We would like to establish institutions where people would like to come. We would want to have our students more again, they have to educate give them the right rates of return in their education. Okay, this is a small graph for total employment in tertiary education, which actually, again, this has been sourced from the World Bank, which is from 1971 to 2012, which actually refers to as to how the enrollment in tertiary education or the total enrollment has actually increased. This is the total public spending on education as a percentage of GDP, which actually defines that we are spending about 3.35% of our GDP on education, which actually is about 1.22% is spent on tertiary education and the rest on the primary and the secondary education. The 12th five-year plan provided that we actually increased contribution from 1.22% per GDP GDP contribute percentage of the GDP contribution to about 1.5% of the GDP contribution. Again, this is public spending on education, which is about 11.33%. So, all the subsidies that all of us have received, as being educated and one of the best institutions for which we are supposed to actually be serving our nations and not going abroad or wasting it away by not creating value, is being subsidized by us only. Our people subsidize it by the public expenditure. So expenditure per student on the tertiary is about this as a percentage of the GDP. It's given by this graph. We can keep blaming them, saying that the government does not do sufficient, but the fact is, whether it is a private initiative or it's a government initiative, there are initiatives that are being taken by both the parties in terms of their overall spending, and the 11th and the 12th plan actually provides for that initiative. So if you look at the total spending, it's been 12,44,799 crores on the plan expenditure. 35% has been plan expenditure, 65% has been on plan expenditure. This is the breakup for the elementary, secondary, and higher education. For the higher education, as you can see, it's 32%. Again, this is center versus state contribution. We do understand that education is on the concrete list of the constitution, and most of the contribution actually comes from the state for the development. However, lately, by the 5-year plan, it is supposed to be now contributed by the center at large. Other specifics, again, gross enrollment ratio is already been told you, which is about 18%, which is likely to be raised to about 25.2% in 2017. GERs, we see a lot of increase in different organizations. These are certain estimates with respect to the manner in which the merit levels should reach at the PhD level, at the PG level, which is general and technical, at the undergraduate level, general and technical, diploma and degree courses that are there. Again, accessibility to the higher education should be provided by way of actually reducing down the cost barriers that are there, by reducing down the cash constraint, by actually asking many of the banks, financial institutions, and others to support educational activities. One thing you will find is that government banks are ready to provide for educational loans to students of institutions like NIMES, but to private institutions which will recognize so the banks may not be very willing to provide education loans. They may ask for very heavy collaterals from students. So, though the government provides that interest rates may be reduced, Yet, education loans are not a very easy facility for a lot of students who do not have guarantees or whose parents have a very low income. So again, cash barrier is there. Debt aversion comes from the fact that most of us are Asians and we rely on our savings and we're not willing to actually go to the financial intermediation aspect for getting educated. Education doesn't really create a tangible asset like asset like a gold or like an asset like a residential property or something else. So when people actually have money also for big businessmen, they may not be willing to spend on education at large, which needs to be highlighted. Race, ethnicity, parental education, gender, geographical location, they all affect the accessibility. Now, these are some of the universities which I think all of you are all educated in. Yes, we all understand there are central universities, there are deemed universities, central universities like the university you have, deemed universities like the IIT, you have technical institutions, you have management institutions, and you have others. Again, we will not go through what these institutions are and how are funded. This is again given an economic survey as to different states as well as the different institutions that we have. We have about 642 universities, about 34,008 colleges, and different technical education. Present reliance is heavily on distance learning, online courses, and others to reach out. There is newer education setups that are being provided through other channels like mobile services and others, even to reach out to, let's say, the farmers for agricultural purposes and others. So it's not about going to the higher education, but yes, it does provide some amount of education. So you have these teacher training programs, you have nursing programs, you have other institutions that are there. The 12th plan laid out this particular graph, which actually talks about why higher education is important, which talks about the outcomes in terms of the expanded availability of the higher education, narrowing the group inequalities. Obviously, if people get more money, there would be narrowing down of the income inequalities, it would be narrowing down of the social ills also. Education is a simple initiative of the idea that you can actually come over with all social evils or all criminal activities which might be going around. If people are educated what their rights are, what they should do, and what is the approach in case they feel that they are unjustified in the way they have been met with. Improve teaching across. These again provide for important things which are expansion, equity, and excellence. The important aspect is financing. Financing again with respect to let's say the government bodies, they must reduce down on their costs in terms of the salaries that are being paid, cost in terms of the manner in which they decide how they should allocate their funding, so bring about capital budgeting decisions, cost in terms of, let's say, having welfare expenditures which actually don't reach out to the welfare of the people. Again, as for revenues, many of the government organizations have been trying to improve upon both tuition fees, they've been trying to improve upon other service fees, which might be the, let's say, management consulting fees or other fees which is there. They might also look at for different funding streams which might come to collaboration. Let's say, for example, at IIT Delhi itself, many of the engineering departments are actually collaborating with African universities, with Chinese universities, with other universities, and bringing about education program, which is bringing about earnings to IIT. Similarly, other earnings, consultant fees, which might be there, or other fees which might be there. Again, when we talk about financing, lately the government has also been saying that the institutions should be allowed to go to the capital markets for raising bonds, for raising equity, for raising other sources of funding. Institutions should also be allowed to actually bring about tie-ups with the industry, which can again fund their requisite needs. Many of the academic institutions have been asking that if we have the charitable character as educational institution, then allow us to be registered under Section 25, give tax incentives to us and other things. So when we talk about financing, this is one particular table which you'll find again in the 12th five-year plan, which talks about the allocations which the government has made. Since the time is submitted, I'm not going to do it, but it actually talks about how much amount is the allocation is the government proposing with respect to central universities, state universities, and others. Again, funding responsibility is this is again planning commission source, which talks about the central state government responsibility with respect to both plan and non-plan expenditures for the different universities and colleges. Again, I mentioned you can look at the cost side, which is establish wage and salary policies, relocate expenditures from one category, carry forward unspent amounts. again, look at other structures which might be there. Increase tuition fees, try for a dual tuition fee structure, which is like create a structure whereby people can have not only pay for basic tuition fees, but if there are additional services which you're providing, they pay for that. Again, not eliminate student grants from people who are disadvantaged, eliminate it from people who don't want to receive it or who are better off to be receiving it. Like the case that is there for reservations. Give reservations to the people who are economically backward, not because they belong to a particular class. They should be given reservation. Cost-effective recovery of tourism and other things. Again, I believe I just sum up a little bit in saying that when you look at the thing which is there, the biggest funding which is required for most institutions is in terms of the infrastructure. Land has been made extremely expensive for academic institutions. Earlier they used to be given at lower cost, but now auctioning has been done by many authorities. Again, their already cost for building up these structures is very high. If you want cost per unit for the pupils to actually go fall, must provide an infrastructure facility, not only the central or the state institutions, but to other private institutions who may be willing to do a good job. And there are a large number of private institutions which are doing a good job. Allow them to offer revenue streams by liberalizing the education policy and offering the services that are there. Again, create more accountability in terms of the manner in which you accredit, whether it is by way of the ICT, whether it is by way of other accrediting agencies. Allow people to decide whether an institution is good or not. Let the industry decide. Create industry and other training platforms of partnership where, let's say, giving tax breaks to industry and saying that if they educate people and if they create a structure where students are educated and employed in their own organization, then a tax relief will be given to them. So incentivize the industry, looking for forward and backward linkages, whereby the industry can bring about a supply chain unit, creating skills among people which are employable. Acceptance of research and development, provide for education because education creates research and development. Allow Section 25 to have a broader ambit which is not dependent upon the tax officials' ideologies, but is dependent upon the manner in which charitable institutions should be run. Allow religious institutions to participate in education in a manner which is literal. There are temples, there are other places where large amount of money is staying and which can be actually utilized for the growth and development of this country. Any aids that the government does, allow that money to actually be participated in the educational structure. Make education one of the tangible asset which is valued for people as against their relative wealth of other tangible assets which people create. So that's as far as I could go. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Yamini Agarwal, for speaking on issue of financing higher education. Whole government of India will take cognizance of this. Now I would like to invite Dr. Neeta Awasthi for her presentation. Dr. Neeta Awasthi has a work experience of around 26 years in research, teaching, and academic administration in the field of engineering and technology. An alumni of HPTI, she has been conferred Distinguished Academician and Outstanding Administrator Award in August 2012 by All India Council for Human Rights, Liberties and Social Justice, reflecting her academic and administrative skills. She received NTSC scholarship and then finished her BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering from HPTI Kanpur, MTech degree from Uttarakhand Technical University, and PhD in Electronics and Communication Engineering from Uttar Pradesh Technical University. During her research, she presented 2 research papers abroad, one in Turkey and another in Antwerp, Europe, with grants from university. After finishing PhD, she qualified the Energy Auditors Exams Bureau of Energy Efficiency in 2009 and became a government certified energy auditor. She is member of IEEE, Fellow of Institution of Electronics and Telecom Engineers, Life Member of Indian Society for Technical Education, and Life Member of Computer Society of India. She has 40 national and international papers to her credit. She has written two books, one on soft computing and the other on digital signal processing and guiding, 9 research scholars of various universities. She's the editor and reviewer of various national and international journals, consultant and resource person to private and government units. Madam Dr. Neeta Awasthi. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Atul Jain, giving me a platform. A very good afternoon to all present here. I understand there is not much a difference between the audience and the people who are sitting on the dais, because many of you I can see are great academicians in front of me. So today the topic I picked up was role of skills and innovation in technical higher education. When we started this session, Dr. Jain said that in 2020 we'll be having half of the population who is I think less than 25 years of age and needing higher education, right? So I take you to 2023. So what will happen in 2023? All those graduates would have completed their graduation and they would be sitting at our godowns and backyards as an output, waiting for the jobs. And then we'll be having a conference something like this. Then how to do and what to do with these graduates? Is it right or wrong? So how do we go about it? If we start the creativity and the innovation from the school level and let it flourish by the time it comes to higher education, and let it flourish there also, then I think we'll be sharing part of the problem. We'll be solving that part of the problem. Just a minute. So I thought since there's so many private engineering colleges, 486 to be precise, under UPG only, I thought let me tell you a little before I start from about my college also. That is ABS Engineering College. I am Director of Academics there, and it is in a 16.5 hectare fully Wi-Fi campus with 400 cameras also, surveillance. Then we have 100 classrooms, departmental libraries, labs, conference and seminar halls, almost 5,000 students, 300 faculty members and 200 staff. And then industrial education center. Now here actually the things start. We have industrial education centers of IBM, Cadence, Rockwell Automation, Microsoft, SAP, CAD, Oracle, National Instruments, and Cisco laboratories and Cisco routers. Another, we have started an initiative which we call a Spark initiative. I'll tell you a little later about it. Oh, sorry. So, let me tell you, I am not a teacher by chance. I am not a teacher because I didn't get anything else to do. I chose to teach. Then I thought, why should I teach? I read many papers and the answer I got in one of the papers of Mr. Block. And very rightly he said these things, that according to Eliot, he has referred to Isner's paper. And Eliot Isner says that teaching allows you to participate in the world of great ideas, realize a form of immorality, enact performance, provides opportunities to create and participate in form of aesthetic experiences, experience and represent a passion for learning, and make a difference in a student's life. That is what the slide says. And what I experienced, I'll tell you that. In my experience in 4 or 5 engineering colleges in the last 15 years where I worked, I did not get an opportunity to be in one college where the environment says, well, you come up with the ideas.
We are asked to do few things, we do it as teachers, thereafter we give the pattern to the students. Do this, do this, do this. We don't let them think. That is it. Then, obviously, as teachers, when we write books, participate in conferences like this, I think this is how we become immortals. Enact performance. Well, fine. I teach digital signal processing. I am a signal system teacher. When I finish my course, I do a 2-hour workshop in which I say no need for any attendance. And all the students are present in that workshop. Why? Because they know that the entire crux of the entire course will be there in that 2-hour workshop, where they won't be getting any attendance. And it is not only how I or any teacher teaches the entire thing, it is actually mesmerizing the entire audience sitting in front of you. And when you have that kind of passion in you, well, I have taught this much, my students must be knowing this one. So they can go ahead and create a filter. Well, they can go ahead and do maybe traffic signal processing now. When you have that confidence in you, then you go ahead, ask your students, then you in your second course, you challenge them where you did this in the last course. Now next, after I finish this course, you will be doing this. So when we tell this to the student, then he has that kind of interest before I start the course. Motivating a student turns out to be, what I say, half the job done. If we are able to motivate them, well, I have done my job. If I ask any of the, see, we are also mentors to the students, we are also mentors to our junior teachers also. If I ask any of the junior teacher, what do you want to do? You would say, ma'am, I would like to teach like you. No, you have to teach like yourself. If I can inculcate that kind of thing in my student and the junior teachers, well, I have done my job. So that is enacting actually performance. And if I can tell you, I have only one class. What do we do? For 24 hours, we are preparing ourselves. I'm waiting for that one class 24 hours. That is a tightrope performance for me. That is my performance. And I've been waiting for this for 24 hours, preparing for this. Whether I was conscious, subconscious, unconscious. Well, if I have played my cello well, I have done my job. Next comes the opportunity to create and participate in the form of aesthetic experience. Right now we are having an education policy, very old. We thought, I'll come in the next slide, we thought to create a refresh it. 3 years, I think 5 years back also, couple principals are trying to do it. Right now also we are trying to do. That is for increasing the aesthetic sense. In our college days, along with the engineering, we were taught management, one course, maybe sociology, psychology, one course each in each year, and economics. Now, the credit system tells you that you can go ahead with picking up subjects which are not related, maybe like history and geography. If you feel good, you go to another college, you go to another society, you go to another university. Accrue your points, come back, it will be added in your system. This is what we are coming to. So if we can create that aesthetic sense, so see, this becomes a point of debate here. Whether we would like our higher education students, maybe I would like my engineers to be having a good aesthetic sense only so far as my designs and my, maybe when I am designing a device, something I am designing a mobile maybe, it has got a, ergonomically it is designed, that is, it can hold, your hand can hold it. I would like to design it ergonomically. Maybe a good aesthetic sense would say, it will not look awkward. It will not be looking something coming from the Gothic culture and all. Maybe yes. Then experience and represent a passion for learning that I have already explained, and making a difference in the student's life. All of us sitting here have been and are students once and teachers. Sorry, I say once a teacher is always a teacher.
truly, till you are finished. And the best success criteria to me and to any of the teacher, that is when the student comes and tells us, this is what I have achieved in my life. When he comes or she comes and tells me, now I have had my higher education. I have had my higher education abroad. I am earning this. I am happy in my office. I am happy in my family. When I am not teaching them and they come to me and give me their invitation for their family function, I feel happy there. We become part of each other. Now I go ahead. Many of you must have seen TED Talks, right? It is about technology, entertainment, and design. TED Talks are very famous in YouTube. Sir Ken Robinson has a TED Talk there. Ken Robinson was the head of advisory committee on creativity and cultural education of British government in 1998. Now his TED Talk on how schools kill creativity, it has 3 crores 14 lakh and more viewers. It has had 3 crores 14 lakh views so far. Now he says that creativity is as important now in the education as literacy. जब आप ABC पढ़ाना शुरू करते हैं, I'll give you a personal example here. When my son started studying and he asked me how to write B, I told him 3 ways to write B because I knew 3 ways to write B. He goes to his teacher and tells him, and she says, okay, ask your mother to teach rest of you. She was not ready. She said, no, you have to write B in this particular way only because I am writing it here. You have to copy it 100 times. And tomorrow you will be doing double the homework others are doing. Nothing is possible. Brahma Vakya ho gaya. Anyway, and that a person who has been taught, who is literate, should be creative, that we have to ensure. Next we come. We all know Albert Einstein. He was a school dropout. Right now, sir said something about him. He was a school dropout. Can you ever, all of us must have had this kind of experience in our life. That you want to find out something, you kept thinking about it, you slept with it, and then after 2 or 3 days, when you stop thinking about it, you get an answer. How many of you had that experience? Can you please raise your hands? When you really stopped thinking about it, you got that answer. Okay? That is the intuitive mind. It is a sacred gift. And the rational mind, we talk about left and right brains. This is logical one, this is intuitive one, this is creative one, and here we have the intuitive one. We have created a society that honors the servant, which is a rational mind, logic's rational spine, and has forgotten the gift, which is actually the intuitive mind. Now, government understands, and now we are really working on it in a major way, that skill enhancement is very important. So many initiatives have been taken by government. Earlier it was polytechnic. I'm talking only about engineering. This is what I know the best. Then we had ITI. Then we had, how to bring them to the mainstream in BTech students through AIEEE. Sorry. Then many apprentice scheme in various departments are there, and skill development initiative schemes. Then MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises. Then we have National Skill Development Program, STAR Phase 1 and Phase 2. And National Skill Certificates and Monetary Reward Scheme, right now also we are having it. Every, I think, day you can see these kind of schemes, government schemes, for which they publicize in newspapers. Through MSME also, and through STAR schemes also. And this continues with what government asks us to do. Now, UGC is working on the basis of National Education Policy, which was framed in 1986. We need to refurbish it at least. HRD Minister Mrs. Smriti Irani insisted for overall of the education system, where all stakeholders, starting from students to the faculty, to the they can work seamlessly, work together, starting from students admission to industry placement. Our ex-HRD minister, that is Mr. Kapil Sibal, also tried similar thing, but only it could be implemented between 14 central universities, which were started in 2009 only. Others did not participate into it. He also came up with 7-step multiple entry, multiple exit formula. All of us must be remembering it. But again, it could not be implemented properly. And right now, what we have been insisted by the government that another MBA form, the criteria 7.2.6 and 4.4.4, has been introduced for initiatives, product design, initiatives, and entrepreneurship. Then we have Kushal centers. Again, this is continuation with what government is trying to do. 100 centers for knowledge upgradation and skilled human action and learning will be set up by UGC across India. The centers will provide job-oriented, skill-based training. The course will create skill manpower for industry requirement in various levels, and government this way is trying to bridge the gap between industry and academia. And for each of these centers, 1 crore rupee per year has been promised for NGOs and colleges affiliated to the university having 12 status. Now, what do we do? Film Mechanic का एक website is there, and that is all about innovation. It is called Film Mechanic website. You just try. He has got a very good web page, this Facebook page also. Best the gadgets. He's called gadgets. Little that is enough. When it comes to innovation, an ounce of execution is worth more than a ton of theory. True. So this is what we did. So far as I was showing 2-3 slides I showed, that said spark. That is a spark that we created in the college. That is our small ounce that we could really do. Now, Peter F. Drucker was a management consultant, educator, and author. He had 39 books to his credit, all ranging from management to innovation and everything. He says, since we live in the age of innovation, a practical education must prepare a man for the work that does not exist. So far, we were talking about lifelong learning. Now the challenge comes, we really don't know for which work we are preparing them. I'll give you an example. All of us have seen it. In our childhood, we used to have video cassettes. Right? We have forgotten them. Then came the CDs. Maybe, yes, and then came the pen drives. Now it is through cloud. What we are asking, it is all asking us to upgrade the thought process. This is what I was coming to, that innovation is a practical education. That is, it must prepare a man for the work that doesn't exist and cannot be clearly defined. That is what we have to prepare the students for. And for that, what is needed is creativity and innovation. Now the solution is, in many colleges, there have been an introduction of innovation cell, then competitions between the colleges, recognition by local authorities that has started, because in newspaper every day, once or twice, we are seeing something has been created anywhere out of Jugaad, out of Kawad, that is being accepted. Indians are really good at it. I'm telling you, we are good at recycling and we are good at Jugaad. And this is the time you should make the best use of it. Now, the Prime Minister's initiatives are also there, and there is Make in India initiative. Again, he says, see, this is a very fast-moving word. Again, Drucker says, the enterprise that does not innovate inevitably ages and declines. And in a period of rapid change such as this that is in present, the decline will be fast. So we need to prepare ourselves for that. Now, this is a question I love. When was the last time you did something for the first time? I give you 15 seconds here. Just think over it. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
Yes, sir wants to say something?
Well, every time we do it.
Every time you do
Because
something.
even if similar thing is done in the past, maybe we do it differently now.
Very right.
So that is the first, I mean, this moment.
If that is the thing, then you are really evolving yourself. If that is the way you are living, if in the morning you think, well, today, let me see how the day rolls off out of my hand. Let me see. If you are ready for the challenge, and by the end of the day you are satisfied, well, I started well, and I finished well. That's okay. This is all I wanted to say, but I want to give a few comments about the previous speakers. Can I, Dr. Jain, can I give a little couple of minutes for comments for the previous speakers?
Sure. Yeah, please.
While Dr. Manisha Priya was talking, she was talking about 1 in a million cases many times. That this is what happens in 1 in a million cases, what the rest of it. See, we are mathematicians, so this is how I say that life is all about probabilities. Fine, 1 in a million does well, but be prepared for the rest of them. She said the same things, similar things. What do we do with the rest of them? One of them turns out to be Einstein. For that, we need to have that, fine, a sheet of paper on which the instrument, as she said, and then trust in the instrument. It needs to be there. That is there. But at the same time, there has to be skill development at all levels. Right now, if I remember correctly, sometimes in 1998 and 2000, private engineering colleges started coming in North India. So many of them mushroomed everywhere. And now what is happening? It started with quantity, so many of them were there. AICT did not stop anybody, and now what is happening? It is the quality. Now only the quality institutions will survive. Not every Tom, Dick and Harry. So the correction has started from quantity to quality automatically. Now it is very clear. Only the good students will get the job. Only the good faculty will be getting the jobs. And if we have talked, a number of speakers have spoken about Chinese PhDs. I'll give you a very funny example. I'm recalling right now here. Recently, we have had an international conference on computers and electronics. And the registration fee was 5,400 rupees for AIEEE members. We got a letter from China that 15 papers are there, and they negotiated that it has to be 2,000 rupees each. I found it silly. How can you negotiate about registration fee for a conference? And this is the way so many PhDs are being created there in China. According to the BRIC report, in the last 3 years, every year, so many engineering PhDs have been, the number of Chinese people have created, I'm saying, I'm sorry with the word, are becoming PhD holders in the last 3 years. Every year, That many number was there in US in so many years. Every year, so many of them are being given PhD degrees. And you have, for that, you have to have certain papers. And for that, you can negotiate with the 15 and 18 papers. Found it very funny. Anyway, then, ma'am said one thing that women don't find jobs in that. I don't know what she meant when she said it, because she's not here, otherwise she would have defended it maybe. 50% of the faculty members in my college are women. In other colleges, I know good numbers are there. But at the same time, for unskilled workers, that is for the less of staff and all, the ratio is 80-20. So again, I would say the again, it is this is a proof that certainly you should have a proper degree with you. Then you will be certainly better placed. And yes, the case of triple IT, we have Dr. Janote there. When he wanted to start triple IT here in Delhi, he asked all the researchers he got hold of world, anywhere he found. He said, I'll give you similar labs here and 1 crore rupees each, up to 1 crore each. Half of the salary what they was giving, maybe 1/3 of the salary, but all commuting and your kids will be taken care, your parents will be taken care and everything. And people have come, they have come back. So this is it. If we provide good laboratories, then certainly our point is right that research can very well bring good teachers and we really do not need any teachers training. If we can provide good laboratories. But the problem is there is a gap. Right now there is a gap. Maybe after 20 years this gap won't be there. This is a temporary situation. This is how I feel. Then again, it is a very pathetic situation right now. That do we want to send our kids to government schools? Right or wrong? Do we want to send our kids to government schools? When we become ill, do we want to go to government hospitals? Yes, one hand. Not many. But do we want government jobs?
Yes.
So the thing is,
Here again, it depends on
person, yeah, but more or less, majority if I'm talking about, yes.
Generational perception is there.
Yes, that's
The young generation does not want to go to government.
yes, perfect. But generally, I'm trying to take a
Staff jobs are still in demand. As I said, people will try for the civil services and all.
yes.
मल्टीनेशनल कंपनीज में बहुत लोग जाने जाते हैं
बहुत ज्यादा जा रहा है।
कोई जो नहीं मिलता कोई जो नहीं मिलता वो आईएएस मिल जाता है सिनेरियो बदल गया
So good, then at least this ice has broken and people have started talking between themselves, fine. So I would wind up here, just from where I started. Right now, what we are having, oh yes, I take it out. I think I sent one slide later, no? Acha, you didn't receive. Okay, that was the model that I had given actually. So how should it be? This is what I feel, that there should be a national idea bank. Right. At one place there must be people who are practicing doctors, engineers, consultant, architects, interior decorators. Whoever they are practicing people, they are there. And at one place we should be having your this academic institutions. And this idea bank has to be IPR protected. And then, fine, we give the idea to the academics, academic institutions, give them money also if they need. So be it. Similar kind of thing is there for the grants in ways of grants and all. But this can be created so that this environment, see, ideas don't come from people by giving incentives. There has to be culture. So obviously, if we be having that kind of culture there, certainly this thing will take us to a destination where we want all our kids to be raised right. We want India to flourish. We think that maybe GDP will also increase and many more things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neeta Awasthi, for your enlightening and ice-breaking talk. I would now request Dr. Neeta Awasthi to take the lead for conduct question and answer session from the audience. As I already said, in any kind of a question, we already have the mics in front. However, we also have podium mic with us. Yes, sir. Yes.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Atul for a warm invitation for this conference, which was very rightly said that would be a women-driven conference. I'm delighted to be here for a couple of reasons. One, of course, from our birth to our when we are a child, or we are adults, or we get married, or we have a daughter, we are driven by a woman. My background is that I'm actually from the other side of the table. I'm into life skills and soft skills training and HRD. But for spiritually and for community development work, I'm associated with Brahma Kumaris, which is the largest women-driven organization with 8,500 centers. I have a friend there who we are together. He is a senior scientist with DRD. So with that background, I just would like to make certain points and then I have two questions to follow. The title of the conference is Role of Higher Education in Developing India. I would rather take it forward to role of higher education in sustainable development of India, along with the sustainable development of our higher education system. If you notice, I mean, earlier it was shared, and that also ethically and responsibly, with the stakeholders accountable for what they are doing. But let's examine that why things are not happening the way they should have happened years ago. Why we are just having conferences and meetings and policy making, probably maybe after the partition or before the partition, I don't know. Because we are all working in a doing domain. ऐसे करना है, ऐसा होना चाहिए. But not for a domain of being. If we turn the Maslow's theory of needs, the pyramid upside down, and not starting from the physiological needs or the security needs and so forth. If we start from the actualization and creativity, then we are in a state of avastha and not vyavastha. हम व्यवस्था में लगे बिना अवस्था में आए हुए. If you operate from there, things will happen. And ma'am, I'm delighted that you shared about the skills because, in fact, I was wondering that you have taken my notes. I had all the points which you had said. I'm of the same opinion. You said the child should not be forced into whatever he or she wants to do. They should be left independent to achieve. And just yesterday only I received a small slide. And that said, a child should not be forced what education she or he should take or what career to follow. Otherwise, he'll turn out to be another Rahul Gandhi. That was a joke. I mean, you know. So that is one. Secondly, the employability and soft skills is a must. When we say that our students are not employable, that's the opinion of the industry. It's not because they lack knowledge or they lack certain technical skills. What is lacking is the soft and life skills. HRD heads of various companies, what they say, you give us the students, we'll technically train them the way we want in our organization, but we want them to come with some confidence, to be expressive, mean strong in their communication skills, decision making, analytical skill, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's the area that they want all of us to work. And I think that should be actually the part of the curriculum at every level. So that was ready. And secondly, our students, the senior students, should be trained as mentors to take on the responsibility, and they develop the leadership skills in return, communication skills, presentation skills, and they're actually making a difference in the junior students' life. So these are, but I have a few more suggestions which I'll send to you, Dr. Atul, which you can share with everybody. I won't take much time, but I have two questions. One is to ma'am, it's about law. I mean, what is the emphasis on mediation in legal education? Are there any classes or any curriculum for that, or no? Is this not a part of that? Because Supreme Court has amended all this.
No, actually, apart from the curriculum given by the university, we have separate courses and program running in our college, and I think it is implemented in all the leading colleges, that students are trained and they are given extra short-term courses, certificate courses in the specialized subject. And arbitration and mediation, these are really good thing, because a student will become more efficient, and it will definitely add to their curriculum CV that they have done something extra in this. And as Consumer Protection Act 1986, there also the need of mediation is very much important. Means people are going in that mediation process. So for that reason, if I talk about my college, that in our college we are ready to provide them, and we have planned various short-term courses related to these subjects and topics. Yeah, it is need of the hour. Our students, as I said, that they need to be industry ready, they need to be profession ready. Only having the degree and bookish knowledge will not help. Okay.
Ma'am, one question, anybody can answer that. Why there has to be a MA or MPhil or something to pursue PhD? Why there got to be minimum 55% or 60% marks in graduation or masters or so and so forth? If somebody has more than 20 years of experience in the particular field, maybe as a trainer or a teacher, or maybe in any other field, why it is so? Why that mandatory? Suppose he is on third division in 10th or 12th.
So actually, there are things you can do about it. There are things you cannot do about it. Let me elaborate. I think in one of the countries I've come across, you should have some number of papers, maybe 8 or 10, with which it will be considered that you are good enough to write your thesis and all. This is there. I don't remember the name of the country.
Japan itself allowed. Japan itself it is allowed.
It is allowed. In some countries it is allowed. In our system, well, certain times you are at certain places. When you have to execute something, you are at some places. When you are in the policy, at the places where you can do the policy decisions, you can make. So when you are making the policy decisions, you think about it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My friend, Atulyanji, thanks a lot for giving me a opportunity to come over here. Excellent presentation by all the madams. I'll give some of the. I have been retired forest officer in Indian Forest Service 3 years back. Just I was thinking the role of higher education in developing India was very. You are all talked about very rightly and very aptly, and it's excellent presentations and oratory. But we are going, yes, see the last 40 years where India has developed a lot. We have learned a lot, we have imitated a lot, we have brought many resources, the things which were, I think, available in the Western countries. These are all coming. The mall culture has come, everything has come. Your education, I'll be thinking not from logical left brain, in the right brain I am talking about. That where we are going. The madam very rightly, you just unaware that why the female are not getting the 50-50 presentation of in the jobs or skills in the job market. Whether we are blindly following that, what should be our aim to achieve 50%. Without looking into that, what is the background of this country itself, what has been the culture, and where we are heading towards a, I'm physics student, from the entire universe is coming from an order to a disordered thing. The society is also changing. When we are thinking of the poor and rich, we are talking of the higher education for whom? For example, let me we this question is that. Yes. Now my question is that where is the place we have become a consumptive society? We are bringing all the things. We are only consuming the things. We are not the primary producers. Who is going to in the higher education level, in the higher level? Who is thinking about that? The resources which we are using in the country, we are all the resources we are exhausting with the natural resources. But where is the place in the higher education or even at the primary level where we are talking about environment? None of the speakers, I'm sorry, we were talked about engineers, we talked about lawyers, all the skills we talked, we didn't touch upon the natural resources and how we are going to, how we are going to have the balance in the on the earth. We may go on the Mars for finding the place to live in. But the way our society is changing, the lifestyle is changing, whether we are going to educate through by any means to stop that. That is my main concern. And I thank you very much for very excellent presentations in your fields. I don't know who will reply.
I think in all the courses, in all the colleges, I can tell you about engineering colleges, we are always having one course in every program. We have one course on this, new and renewable energy. At least we teach and we practice that also. Because in the colleges, there is one recycling plant, there is one sewage treatment plant, and there is one rainwater harvesting plant. In all the colleges, that is mandatory now. So at least we have that thing. So this is the best we can do.
I think we had addressed, I have addressed a little bit about the resources. We're not exhausting the resources, we're utilizing the resources as we tend to put them in use for anything. Any kind of resource which is actually developed, whether it is land, paper, anything as a matter of fact, when it is being put in the right technical order and we're utilizing it, I think the resource tends to give us the right benefits. If you're just leaving it idle and you're not doing anything about it, that's a wasted resource. And in India, whether it's land, whether it's labor, whether it's capital, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether land lying as a piece of land not being used by agriculturalists, industrialists, or by the servicemen, or whether it's the labor who's sitting idle as a disguised unemployment in agriculture, or waiting for a government job, or thinking that they'll probably get something, or it is let's say capital which is resting with people in unproductive resources, or it is entrepreneurship where people think that they may do something. That's a wasted resource. A resource which is being utilized even with a lesser amount of ROIs is a beneficial or a beneficial resource.
Thank you for your thoughts. But I am thinking the agriculture production, the quality of food we are eating, the quality of water, the air quality, everything is going so haywire that none of those resources which you are generating in the world can match it. And everything is deteriorating very fast. So education is very important for creating something, bringing back that. That was my point. We can discuss a lot about it. It is not the proper place, I think.
If you would like want to look at
Yes, that is not the right point to talk about it. Only just I am indicating towards that. This is entirely a different arena of thinking. Anyway, thanks a lot.
Madam, for this conference, we have intentions of sending some recommendation to the government. Now, you are from a definite area, one from the engineering, finance, and law. Can you give us 1 or 2 lines of recommendation for the new education policy which government is about to frame, so that while others can listen to it, we can frame it and send it to the government?
You want the suggestions?
We want suggestions from you to be included in the new education policy for higher education. Maybe for the engineering field, maybe for the management finance field, or for the law.
I think for me, I had given National Idea Bank.
Okay, you feel that that should be put into the NEP, the Idea Bank, and matching of the two stakeholders to the idea, right? Okay. Dr. Yamini, please.
Yeah, for law,
For law, I'd like to recommend here that apart from the university curriculum, apart from the university syllabus, students should be allowed to move from college to the courts for their practical learning. Because that is not allowed as per the guidelines of the Bar Council of India. Our students cannot move out of the campus unless or until their syllabus is covered. So that recommendation we can give because practical learning is very much important. And if they are not getting during their course time, it becomes very difficult for them to go in the to move in the profession. That one point you should add.
And this is essentially required because in all professional colleges, courses like
Yeah, internship and everything is there, but
in
yeah.
engineering it is there, in medical education it is there. Then why not in legal education?
Yes.
It must be there. Surprisingly, it is Bar Council of India has banned it for whatever reasons.
No, it is Bar Council has not banned. Actually, they have given certain period of time for this, and they have asked that you can send your students for internship or other research work just after the completion of your syllabus. And it is not practically possible for the students that just after finishing their syllabus, they need to prepare for their university exam, and after examination, again new semester starts. So where is the time? They don't get proper time. So it is not practical approach from the
There
side.
should be credit for this thing. Some papers
Yeah,
should be written by the
This
should be part
This
of
point
the
must be added.
Yeah, it's a very important.
Dr. Yamini, anything for the management or finance studies?
Well, I understand that market recognition is a more important or a valuable thing as against licensing or accreditations. So if they actually can provide for market recognitions where institutions are recognized for their work in the terms of the quality that they produce and the students that they produce and who are employable at a higher wage or at a higher salary as against looking at accreditations by the ICT or by the other accrediting bodies.
So what I understand is basically you're saying the market recognition in terms of a rating system, which at the moment is uncontrolled rating system by various magazines and other
Let the industry
organizations.
decide whether an institution should provide the students or not, as against the government deciding to provide these institutions.
Due to paucity of time and on-schedule program, may I request all our audiences to have a brief interaction with our esteemed guests over the high tea. Moving on to the next thing, I request Dr. Jain on behalf of HEC to deliver the vote of thanks.
Now we are coming to the end of this very small conference, a first initiative by the Academy. Let me take just 1 minute to tell you my first feelings of this conference. As this conference started, we started on time, and as usual, we have an Indian stretchable time in India, so the seats were vacant. Thanks to all the audience, all the students, each one of you, that you turned up, and we have now decent number of people listening to us. But the greatest surprise to me started coming thereafter. As the conference started moving, 2:15, 2:30, I started receiving SMSs stream by stream. SMSs of regret almost from 30 persons saying, sorry Atul, I'm comfortable here, I'm watching you.
Good.
Technology has played the game.
Just play this part, yeah.
Most of the friends and invitees, well, I should say it was my mistake. Those who I invited personally, I had also sent the link to them saying that please share this link to your friends, families, faculty and students. They decided not only to share with them but also sit at home and watch. So number of people are watching us, and thereafter till now, I have got almost 100 SMSs. There is a person sitting at the back who is constantly replying. Many of the people, they have not received the link correctly, so they were asking, send me the link. So we are constantly sending the link for this YouTube telecast, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people who are watching this live through the technology. I think one of the greatest contribution to the higher education is that it is the higher education which has created the technology, and it is this higher education which created the technology. We are able to go through each office, each room to deliver this talk. So my sincere thanks stands for all of you, each one of you who took pains and came here. My equal thanks are to all those who decided to use technology and tell me that in future we can have a conference in a smaller room but a larger audience. And of course, my sincere thanks to esteemed Madam Dr. Neeta Awasthi, Dr. Niti Sinha, and Dr. Yamini Agarwal. Dr. Poonam we missed. Nevertheless, thanks to her for her contribution. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Request you for just 2 more minutes for handing over the moment to Dr. Pallavi.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to express our sincere gratitude towards learned key speakers. On behalf of HEAD, we wish to hand over a small memento as token of our association and remembrance. May I request Bhanu Pratap, a well-known lawyer in Delhi High Court and President Rashtriya Janhit Sangharsh Party, to come and present memento to Dr. Neeti. Now I call upon Dr. Sanjay Jain, Professor of Physics at Delhi University and an active member of Evolution, to present a memento to Dr. Yamini. Dr. Atul Jain, President Evolution and Director Head, is now requested to present a memento to Dr. Neeta Awasthi.
Thank you. I'm so much of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, our sincere thanks to all of you for your valuable time and active participation in the conference. I request each one of you to kindly join us for a cup of tea just outside the hall. Thank you.